What's your favorite scary movie? Be like, I'm dying.
If some guy came up to me and said, "Hey, they guys, I'm like, it's over and done. We're married now."
Someone in the movie, so I'm like, kiss. But
oh God, what a sea of humanity.
Hey. Welcome in to the 52slash channel. This is where we do a live movie conversation podcast where we're typically discussing movies for a full year, from movies that are, 30 years old. But today we're doing something a little bit different. But before we get into that, I'm your host, Cody. I'm joined by my co-host this week, Ryan. Welcome in, Ryan.
Hello.
If this is your first time joining us, welcome in. We're happy for you to join us today. Just to give you a little bit of background on what we're doing. Like I said, we usually do the movies from a specific year, but from time to time, we like to highlight a director's filmography, or directors, plural, filmography, and rank them with maybe a heated debate. Hopefully it doesn't get I don't think it'll get that bad with this one. But this year we're tackling the Coen brothers. And a couple of my favorite directors, and I'm sure that you could probably say the same for yourself, Ryan, about these two. What are your initial thoughts on the Coen brothers, I guess?
I've always loved the Coen brothers. I'd seen just about everything except their last couple movies when we pitched this podcast. I think this podcast idea came out of us talking about the Hudsucker Proxy, which is a 1994 movie. Rewatching that and doing a podcast on it. And as I rewatched that movie and fell in love with it all over again, I started like pontificating or speaking out of my ass about Coen Brothers themes and what they mean to me and how beautifully they reference film, but they also say things about life without ever being heavy-handed or judgmental. And I said that we should. I referenced a bunch of their other movies, and we said we should talk about it more. Having gone through them all over again, they went from my top 10 director team to maybe my top 3, maybe arguably number 1. I mean, I think the Coen brothers are it when it comes to movie makers in our lifetime.
Yeah, I agree. And as I was, like I pulled this from our discussion and rewatching them and watching some that I had not ever seen before, because there were a couple of those, a couple really, really good ones too that I regret that I had not seen before. And I think I'm with you. And one of the things that I kept pulling, and it ended up being more so in like No Country for Old Men, I kept comparing him to, or them to, like one of our other great directors, the one that we had already done a ranking episode on, for Tarantino. It's weird to compare those two, but they're, both roughly around the same age. They both pull from movies from their past a lot and pay homage to those movies of their past. And you can obviously pick out, maybe Tarantino's a little bit younger, but he had the things that he likes to pull from are in the 70s or late 60s. Some action films, revenge films, grindhouse films, with some of that humor pulled in. And the Coens kind of are geared more towards some of the older movies that I love, whether it's a Lubitsch film or and now I'm blanking on some of the other directors that they pull from.
Just all the noir stuff. Dashiell Hammett is a big part of a lot of their stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So Glass Key and Maltese Falcon.
Yeah, a lot of that stuff. And who directed The Apartment?
Polanski?
Not Polanski. That's The Tenant.
I
can't believe I'm blanking on this. It's the same guy that did not Intolerable Cruelty, Double Indemnity.
Yeah. I know the movies, but I don't know who that is right now.
I had to look it up. Billy Wilder. Big.
Of course. Yeah. I was gonna say Preston Sturges. Yeah. Totally, all of those. So yeah, they're definitely Coen, and we can use that as a through line, because I think that I half trolling, half serious, made very loud declarations during our Hudsucker episode that Coen brothers outpaced Tarantino a lot, in my opinion. Certainly in diversity of voice and genre. Tarantino is a genius, and I love him, and I love all of his movies. But he does what he does well, and the Coen brothers kind of prove that they will always make a movie, a Coen brothers movie. But they can do that through any level of color palette or setting or genre or comedy, horror, crime, the 1920s, the 2000s, whatever you need, they can make it a Coen brothers film. And so that consistency of vision is so impressive. But yeah, there's a love for film, and I think that they both are very much what the 90s were, postmodernism. They're postmodern directors, and they are a first generation of directors who were maybe raised on film and culture and television and are battling with their love for those things and their cynicism for those things and the way that those things kind of broke them as adult humans, or they're constantly filtering who they are through those things. Tarantino just wants to kind of crawl inside a bloody, sexy film and live in a fast-paced, gunslinging world of badasses. And the Coen brothers see all of that violence as horrible and horrifying, but are trying to find joy through facing it, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. And before we get a little bit deeper, just want to tell everybody, for those people that do not know who the Coen brothers are, they are comprised of Joel and Ethan Coen and have been making films for 40 years. And those films, like we've already said, have stretched genres and bent the rules of those said genres to make some of the best films that we have today. Together, they have each been nominated for a total of 14 Academy Awards, twice under their alias Roderick James. And they have won 4 Academy Awards, including 2 for screenwriting and 1 for Best Picture, 1 for Best Director, 1 for Best Picture. 12 of those nominations were joint, but each received an individual nomination for Fargo, Joel for Director, Ethan for Picture. Thus, the brothers have 15 combined nominations, or 4, yeah. And then their movies together have 39 total Academy Award nominations, with 6 wins total. They got a couple acting nods in there, and we'll go through that whenever I list off all the movies that we have. So we can start there and list off the movies. As you can see on the screen here, I've got the 20 films listed here. We can talk about all 20 films, and I actually missed one film, which is a documentary about Jerry Lee Lewis.
Yeah, Jerry Lee Lewis.
Okay. I did miss that film, so I haven't actually watched all of them. But we start in 1984 with Blood Simple. That really puts the Coen brothers on the map. Raising Arizona came out in 1987. Miller's Crossing came out in 1990. 91, we have Barton Fink. 94, one of the movies that we've actually watched this year, and we've just talked about, Hudsucker Proxy, that really spurred this conversation. 1996 is Fargo, which actually wins for Best Actress for Frances McDormand, also Ethan Coen's wife, and Best Original Screenplay. 98, we get The Big Lebowski, probably one of the bigger names on this list, just with its cult following and some of the script of that and people quoting it constantly. There's a lot of like memification of that movie too. 2000s brings us Oh Brother, Where Art Thou? 2001, The Man Who Wasn't There. 2003, Intolerable Cruelty. 2004, The Lady Killers. And 2007 comes their, like I would say, their biggest movie to date, and it's No Country for Old Men. They win for Best Picture here, Best Director, Best Adapted Screenplay, and Best Supporting Actor for Javier Bardem. 2008 is Burn After Reading. 2009, A Serious Man. 2010, True Grit. 2013, Inside Llewyn Davis. 2016 gives us Hail Caesar. 2018 gives us The Ballad of Buster Scruggs. And then the 2 other movies that I have listed here, they did on their own. They kind of broke up, but not in a way that like Oasis broke up. They broke up in just whatever kind of way.
Hopefully they'll get back together soon.
Yeah, and I actually got them confused. Joel is the one that is married to Frances McDormand.
That's right.
And he did The Tragedy of Macbeth, and Drive Away Dolls came out this year. Was done by Ethan as a part of his lesbian trilogy that he's hoping to put out.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then heavily co-directed and co-written by with his wife as well.
Yes, with his wife as well. So, yeah, the 21st movie that was put out is a documentary. It's about Jerry Lee Lewis, called Jerry Lee Lewis Trouble in Mind. Came out in 2022.
Yeah.
So
I have not seen Jerry Lee Lewis. I'm very interested and would like to. As a documentary, I don't know how much it would, unless it's a very originally directed documentary. I don't know how much it would have bearing on the conversation so much. But
yeah, I don't know either. And especially with the other two, even with these other two movies, I think it would really only affect my rankings a little bit. And I don't know if you ended up getting to see Tragedy of Macbeth.
No, I found a way to steal it, but I didn't have time. I couldn't access. I didn't have access to Apple TV.
I do
only place I had.
Yeah, I do recommend seeing it, especially if you're a fan of
I've wanted to. I really like it. I like Shakespeare too. To see Denzel as Macbeth, to see the black and white. I'm a big Orson Welles fan who made a black and white Macbeth. That was pretty insane in its own right. I think it'd be really cool.
And one thing I'll say, we probably, like I said, we probably won't throw those in here, but it's gorgeous. Like, it looks so good, and it's filmed completely on a soundstage. It was done kind of in the time of COVID, like they had to break in the middle of COVID at the start of that. So it was very bare bones. It was all done on the soundstage, and it's just like, I watched it again last night and was just like, man, I think I liked it more the second time I watched it than before.
Yeah, I'm gonna make sure to see Macbeth and Jerry Lee Lewis soon. But luckily, I have seen the rest of these. I didn't get a chance to rewatch Lady Killers and The Man Who Wasn't There, especially with The Man Who Wasn't There. I would like to have a fresh look at it, and it's my only regret coming into this conversation that I didn't get a fresh look at it. Lady Killers, I remember well enough to have opinions on it.
With Lady Killers, I actually thought, like, I rewatched them all, but with Lady Killers, I was like, I remember watching this in 2002 or 2003, whenever it came out, and thinking it was clever then, and then kind of holding on to it as something like, oh, you just didn't understand the Lady Killers. And then I recently watched the original version of it, and then rewatched this version, and I think I came away with a little bit of a better appreciation for this movie than originally, even though I was kind of being precious about it and being like, you guys don't know the Coen brothers.
Sure, I felt a similar, not quite the same, where I didn't think it was amazing, but I said, I liked it. I had a good time watching it. I'd watch it again. It's not a great Coen brothers film, but it's better than the average film. And it's, I don't know, to watch Tom Hanks do his thing, and it's kind of a silly movie, and there's a lot of silly things that happen in it. Why not like it? Didn't think it was, secretly genius, but definitely not their best work. In fact, two of their worst works, I think. I did make a little tier list for myself. I think Lady Killers is constantly rated as among their worst, and Intolerable Cruelty. And both of those are movies that they worked on script-wise for other people, and then ended up taking over directing for themselves. So it's kind of like Steven Spielberg finishing AI, maybe, like or Kubrick finishing AI. Spielberg finishing it for Kubrick. That maybe it wasn't like meant to be an official canonical entry into the Coen brothers filmiverse, but they're definitely their movies, and I think they're both good ones. Just compared to what they do best, not the best.
And one thing I will say about those two movies are they went for something. And you can tell what they were going for a little bit, especially Intolerable Cruelty, kind of leaning on some of those like Spencer Tracy, Hepburn movies of back in the day. I kept thinking of Adam's Rib. I think that's the one that I kept thinking of, very much like Adam's Rib. And I wanted them to get there, and it just never got there. And it makes complete sense that it's
and they have touches of those, like in Hudsucker, right? Jason Lee's character is definitely a throwback to the screwball comedies, fast talking, morally gray, but with a heart of gold deep down, kind of broad. That kind of thing's going on there too. And you know what? I would love to see them if they had ever made that movie fully from scratch their own. But instead, what we get is this kind of Frankenstein thing that's half a Coen brothers movie and half a basic rom-com that I think that the tonal differences work against it. It's still not a bad watch.
No, not a bad watch.
One of the few actors that I have that I can admit a somewhat irrational dislike for is Catherine Zeta-Jones. I just kind of
really,
I never liked her. She's pretty. She's very pretty. Sometimes she occasionally delivers a line pretty well, but I think she's a pretty horrible actor, and I get mad when she's in good movies.
I do love Catherine Zeta-Jones in. I do love her in Chicago. I think she's pretty great.
You know what? You're right. I do like her in Chicago, but
but I think you're right. And there's not anything else that I can think of that I'm like, yeah, she's amazing in it. Like,
it's mostly when she gets opportunities like to be in like really cool movies. I think like Ocean's 11, or I really love The Terminal. I think that's a fun movie, and I think she almost ruins it. Stuff like that.
I haven't seen The Terminal. I see it. It keeps coming up on my Netflix for me to watch, and I'm like, I just don't know if I can bring I will eventually. I think
you should watch it. I don't think it's not the best movie ever made, but it's unique, and it's a great example of Tom Hanks having a little range, but still being Tom Hanks.
Yeah, love him. We'll see. We'll see when I get there. Okay. But speaking of that, I've got the rankings list pulled up on here. This is obviously right now the order that they're in is the order of which they came out, but we can definitely move around and talk about those. So we could start from the bottom. What is your last one? Is it Intolerable Cruelty?
I think it is. Leaving out Tragedy of Macbeth, the things I haven't seen. And I don't have, and I would put Drive Away Dolls above Intolerable Cruelty as well. I didn't have that one on my list because it wasn't there. But.
Did you? So you did watch Drive Away Dolls?
Yesterday, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, I watched it last night, and like it was kind of the same thing. I got the same vibe from Intolerable Cruelty, and it's. I really need you, or not need, but you want to watch it. But I want you to watch the Tragedy of Macbeth now that you've seen Drive Away Dolls, because it's like two different people that should never have left each other. Although I really like Tragedy of Macbeth, I think that there is something missing from Drive Away Dolls that I'm like, man, you need Joel back. Like,
no, I think Joel does Macbeth right. This is a good chance to bring up two things. One, that the Coen brothers are. I've never seen a lot of interviews with them. I don't think they're bad interviews, but they famously want their art to speak for themselves. They don't answer questions about what things mean or anything like that. They say it doesn't mean anything. Don't think about it at all. Leave us alone. And so they keep their cards close to their chest as creative people. So as a team, there's always been like fan theories about like, well, who's really doing the most writing? Who's creating this? Who's always doing this thing or that thing? And I think over time, people have, especially with now they've had 2 solo movies, they realize that Joel is bringing a lot of the humanity, the heart, and the depth. And Ethan's bringing a lot of the wackiness and silliness and absurdity. And the fact that they went and did Drive Away Dolls and Macbeth kind of like nails that theory in, because Macbeth seems like it's all depth and like intensity and humanity without an ounce of levity. And then Drive Away Dolls is so silly. It just needs to be pulled a little bit back down to the ground.
Yes. That was my only complaint about it. It was like, there's some funny bits in here and there's some really good stuff. But yeah, it's a little too wacky for it. It kind of reminds me, we're talking about the Coen brothers, but they wrote a movie for Sam Raimi in the 80s called Crime Wave. Mm-hmm. I don't know if you've ever seen that movie.
Many years ago. I don't remember anything about it. It's bad, right?
God, it's ridiculous and it's bad. And I will vamp for Sam Raimi all day long, but geez, that movie's not good.
I think I remember that being like, let's reference let's do a Looney Tunes version of all the movies we liked growing up, but it doesn't work at all. It's not fun.
Yeah, that's kind of what Drive Away Dolls reminds me of, is like, it's just like Looney Tunes. And it is very like Sam Raimi-esque. It's like, it's like Ethan misses Sam and just wants him back, because they all were friends in the 80s and stuff.
Right.
I
put it tolerable at the bottom. Still worth a watch, but I didn't care for it.
Yeah, so I think this is a good way to go through it, is just be like, let's work our way from the bottom to the top and see how much we agree on, how much we don't agree on. So what's if I'm going to go ahead and just take out Drive Away Dolls, take out Macbeth for now. And what's your number 17, right above Intolerable Cruelty?
I have The Lady Killers.
Okay, Lady Killers. All right, I have Burn After Reading is my.
Whoa! All right, first controversy. So I feel like my tier list is pretty normal for the fan base and the culture. I think most of it, but I have a few surprises. I think, and one of my surprises is how high I put Burn After Reading.
Yeah, and I think I'll probably surprise
It's
you.
number 8.
You have that at number 8. Okay.
Yeah.
So let's see here. I'm trying to figure this out. If you have it at number 8, let's see.
I mean, I'm happy to just put yours on screen, but as we talk about it, yeah. But
oh, that's okay. I was giving these point values, and so that this is going to be a controversial thing anyway. I'm trying to write this stuff down, but if I was ranking my Burn After Reading, would get 2 points, and yours would get 10 points. So it's sitting at a 12.
Sitting at a 12. Okay, I see how you're doing it. Yeah.
Now,
I think I got 3 surprises on this list, and that's one of them for sure. We got there quick.
So give me your thoughts on Burn After, or not Burn After Reading. What did you say?
Burn After Reading was what number? The second worst, number 17.
Yeah, but what was your second worst? You said
Lady Killers.
Lady Killers. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
That's what I have to do here. Lady Killers is. I'm looking at the wrong list. I apologize.
You're looking at the Martin Scorsese list?
Yeah, I was looking at something else. I guess I was looking at my list. That's crazy. Yeah, Lady Killers I had a little bit higher. It looks like it's sitting at number 11 for me.
Okay, yeah. Lady Killers, again, we mentioned it already. We don't have time to talk too much about all of them. So, I mean, it's a remake of an older movie. It's a heist movie with some comedy of manners going on. Tom Hanks is a criminal, but like a very distinguished Southern gentleman. But they're scamming a grandma upstairs. They're in the basement of a grandma to dig into a bank or something like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's a casino that they can tunnel to. It's a riverboat casino that they could tunnel to because the safe is underground. So
right. But they're so they have to take lodging in a basement to do the tunneling, and the grandma who's renting it out or something doesn't know what's going on, but is kind of nosy and cranky about them. And it's very fun. But it didn't work for the culture at the time. It's not a completely polished movie. Just a fun comedy that's kind of out of time, out of place. Doesn't hit on all cylinders. But you'll still see better than average hijinks.
Yeah, and my thoughts around it, about it being better than I remember, is that I think that Tom Hanks's performance is a lot better than he got credit for at the time.
I think so too. I really liked it.
I think
he had to pull it out for Colonel Tom or whatever in Elvis.
Yeah, that's so much better than him in Elvis. But I think that he just I think it's a really unique performance, and I think he was at the time trying to do things other than be nice guy Tom Hanks.
Yeah, I think that's him stretching a bit. And then I mean, sometimes you see this with actors too. I kind of see it in well, we won't talk too much about it, but Margaret Qualley really swinging for the fence and Drive Away Dolls. But also, it's I get to work with the Coen brothers, so I really need to do some work here. And you feel bad for sometimes when that happens with great directors and actors, where Tom Hanks is Coen brothers are probably hey, we get to work with Tom Hanks. Tom Hanks is I get to work with the Coen brothers, and then Lady Killers is what's happened. And I mean, they're both professional and successful enough to shrug it off and not be too disappointed, but you always kind of hope that if you get the Coen brothers gig or you get the Tom Hanks casting, that you're about to knock it out of the park, and they just didn't work that time.
Yeah, it just didn't work. There was a lot of stuff in there. The IBS stuff didn't work for me. Some of the fart humor and stuff wasn't my bag.
Mm-hmm.
And honestly, the silly little things were the things that I didn't like in that.
Lady Killers and Intolerable Cruelty, and a little bit we talked about Hudsucker being a PG movie for a bigger studio. The Coen brothers feel a little nervous when they're deciding to or told to be a little more mainstream, and I think that they kind of don't do well under those constraints, whether they're self-imposed or studio imposed or whatever.
Mm-hmm. So with that one right now, Lady Killers moves up to, or is in that number 17 spot.
Okay.
It's only got 7 points. It's not the biggest deal. I'm not mad about it. I know that there's not a lot of love for the lady killers. I didn't calculate, or Burn After Reading has 12 that I'm looking at right now. What's your number 16?
The Man Who Wasn't There. It could go higher, honestly. I think that I watched, like, I was trying to find some good YouTube content for the, like, get me up on knowledge for this this conversation. And there was one quick thing I heard someone say about it where it made me want to go back and rewatch it. That it's hard to watch because it's so slow, but that pacing is really important, and then it pops off. And I was like, I don't remember it well enough. I think that I like the idea of it a lot. And so I put it above Lady Killers and Intolerable Cruelty because it does feel like a more serious attempt by them. Mm-hmm. So I want to give that credit. And maybe if I rewatch it, I could bump it up a couple spots, but I can only put it here now.
Yeah, and I had it in the exact same spot that it's, in my, what is that, 16th spot. And so, unfortunately, it's actually going to go below the Lady Killers.
Yeah, I think it's understandable.
Yeah,
I mean, because it's hard to make these lists because, do I respect artistic ambition a little more than what's a fun watch? Because a Lady Killers can be bad, like a lot of movies are bad, but they can still be a lot more fun to watch than a long, slow black and white movie where the actor is emotionless the whole time. So
yeah, and I likened this movie, I brought it up earlier, I likened this movie to Double Indemnity. It felt like it was pulling a lot from that. But there's something about the Billy Wilder version, or Billy Wilder doing Double Indemnity, where I think I like I think it's Fred McMurray. I think I like him a lot more. Yeah. He gives you a lot more. Fred McMurray is also known as like the guy the Shaggy DA or the Shaggy Dog movies. Like he's the Disney guy.
Yeah, totally.
And then him being in this movie with the femme fatale and getting dicked over and all this stuff. I wanted a little bit more of that in The Man Who Wasn't There, and it just didn't do it for me. And my biggest complaint was the lack of emotion that Billy Bob Thornton had with it. So
yeah, truly.
I think that Billy Bob is a better actor when he is big and when he is bold and portraying a much, I don't know, zanier, not a zanier character, but just like a brash character, like his Bad Santa, or even him doing Carl in
yeah, I think yeah, I was about to say. Well, I guess I was going to say Sling Blade is a kind of emotionless delivery, but it is a bigger choice as an actor. But a Simple Plan, a Simple Plan feels like a Simple Plan feels like a Fargo B-side. If you've never seen that movie.
Oh yes, I thought it's a Sam Raimi movie. So
it's a Sam Raimi movie, yeah, totally. So that is his Fargo, no doubt.
Yeah,
but Billy Bob is pretty great in that.
Yeah, and the one thing I will say about his choice as Carl in Sling Blade is that, yeah, we do get this, kind of emotionally stunted character, but the anger that he gets to and that we see of him portraying that Carl character, like I'm more impressed with that because he is not very capable of showing his emotion, but Carl's angry, especially when that kid gets pushed around and he goes after the stepdad and everything like that. So that's the little difference there that I think about with Billy Bob. So
totally.
And I think Billy Bob gets another good choice. Fargo, they did the Fargo television show, or Fargo television show was made not from the Coens, but by Noah Hawley, who I think is incredible at it. That first season of Fargo is great.
Yeah, even the bad seasons of Fargo that people talk about being bad are still better television than 90% of television.
Yeah,
I love the show a lot.
And I really love that first season, even if it is like a very closely resembled version of the first movie that came out. I still think it's pretty impressive.
Well, and I love that it exists. Just as a very quick aside, like in a world where we get like these entire genres and careers, like J.J. Abrams, like referencing early Spielberg, or like Stranger Things, John Carpenter and Spielberg or whatever. Like we get these cultural reboots that we're allowing other directors to do their updated takes on older directors' things. I love so much that Fargo is giving us so many Coen brothers references and choices from a different creator, and it all feels okay and beloved and sanctioned and supported or whatever. So usually my kind of stuff doesn't get that kind of the things I'm into don't get that kind of cultural rebound, and especially very few people can pull that off well. So the TV show, if I'm if you don't have enough Coen Brothers content, which is hard to say you don't, but sometimes I love them so much I don't, then I can just go rewatch Fargo, and there's a whole lot more of it there. The TV show.
Yeah. All right. What's your let's see, number 15?
One of the only two movies I hadn't seen until this past week. I heard it was bad, and then I watched it and was like, it's not so bad. I kind of love it, but it is down here. Hail Caesar.
Oh, okay. Hail Caesar. All right. Hail Caesar, I think, ranked up a little bit higher on my list. Unless I just got rid of it. I did get rid of it on accident. Hail Caesar. Okay. I think I had it above Buster Scruggs. Buster Scruggs was my next one.
Okay. Yeah, I don't mind that. I think they're both great. I think Buster Scruggs is pretty low on my list. It'll come up in a few. I think the only reason it's so low is that it is a retread of what the Coen brothers have already accomplished so well, but it's just more welcome material. And that's what Hail Caesar feels like as well. Like in Hail Caesar, you have a lot of things that you've already seen the Coen brothers do and do very well. And this is a B+ version of them retreading territory. But still great to watch, still has things to say. I read a review about it that was couple reviews that were so angry that were like, the Coen brothers hate movies, and this movie's about how much they hate movies. I'm like, how can you say that these people hate movies? First of all, they've created like a dozen of the best ones of the past 30 years, and that their movies are all about movies and references to movies. The only thing they hate in this is like the Hollywood system and how like up their ass like actors are. That's not movies to me. Like that seems pretty legitimate criticism.
Yeah. No, I compare this to like, I mean, I feel like every director has their like, okay, let's talk about Hollywood movie. And a lot of times they're not always amazing. Altman has a great one with The Player. I think this one's I think this one's fine. I actually had it number 12 on my list.
This vaguely reminds me, remember the not so great Woody Allen movie we did? Was it Radio Days? Broadway?
No, Bullets Over Broadway.
Bullets Over Broadway, yeah. It kind of reminded me of that. So yeah, every director does have their behind the scenes, and also this has a lot of really good references to Ben-Hur and the golden MGM era. So as a movie nerd and an old movie nerd, I did feel very at home where a lot of audiences may not in Hail Caesar. I felt very at home with the references to the who would always do the big water sequences so beautifully.
Buster Berkeley.
Berkeley?
What is it? Buster?
But
what? Busby Berkeley. Sorry,
Busby Berkeley. You got it, brother. Yeah, Busby Berkeley, and I love those old Busby Berkeley things. So like all the references to and Ben-Hur, I love that shit. And then how like the Christian talk about like how to like write a story about Christ and keep him out, like all of that I'm very into. And then the communist stuff, the Hollywood commie stuff. I mean, that's all up my alley. So I ended up liking this a lot more than I heard the average person did. But at the end of the day, it just it's not up to snuff with the rest of their filmography.
Yeah, and I think it lends to what they're going to do in 2 years later with the Ballad of Buster Scruggs. It's like, okay, let's tell like 6 short stories about Hollywood and all the Hollywood system and how things were controlled. And then they were like, okay, let's do a Western version of that. But we're actually going to split this up a little bit more and have it more laid out. And I think it might work better with the like actually segmenting the stories that they had.
The singing cowboy stuff. You know what this is kind of? It is their Once Upon a Time in Hollywood.
Yeah.
And what I love about both those movies is it shows how Hollywood at a certain time was filled with so many different people, like drug addict degenerates, small town actresses who came from abusive homes, and like Marilyn Monroe from Oklahoma, like gay German dudes, commies, like bigwigs, authors, artists. Like Hollywood was filled with all of these weirdos, and then they all like lived in this small microcosm together. When you kind of see the reality of that in old Hollywood, it becomes a lot more interesting. And though Once Upon a Time in Hollywood is a way better movie than Hail Caesar, they both do a really good job at showing that that these people are all different from each other, but they're all psychopathic in their own way.
Yes. One thing I will say, one highlight I did like from Hail Caesar is the singing cowboy guy.
Yeah.
Aiden
kind of, yeah.
Yeah. I really enjoyed his character. I really enjoyed his storyline. Like they send him all over the place. They put him on a date with this this girl and make them be seen together. So that's like what the press is going to be talking about. And then they send him to go save George Clooney's character from the communists. Like,
Yeah.
I just loved his bit.
He's not that driven by anything. He just got there with a smile and a big dick. Like, he just keeps failing upwards into a weirder and weirder world. And he just takes it all, well, okay, I'll do my best, but he has no idea what's going on around him. It's great. And a lot of like actors were like that,
And I really like the interaction between him and Ray Fiennes and the director.
Yeah, that was great.
That was good comic stuff. All right, so let's as we're moving along here. I'm trying to keep it tallied as much as possible right now. Intolerable Cruelty, Man Who Wasn't There, Lady Killers, Hail Caesar. That's where we're sitting.
Yep.
With this. So, what is your next one, which would be your number 14?
Maybe a surprise. I put True Grit.
Okay, now that's one where we will have some differences here. Not even that big of a difference. I had True Grit sitting at number 11, so not that far away.
Yeah.
Yeah, True Grit, a remake of the famous
Another remake.
John Wayne True Grit, came out in the 60s.
So they've only done 2 remakes, and this one is a huge success compared to Lady Killers.
Yes.
Better than the original. The original is beloved and is a pretty good Western, but this one's way better. I think that this is definitely coming out of their era where they're doing dark and serious after No Country and I guess maybe before Inside Llewyn Davis. But this movie's great. I love this movie a lot. And I was struggling. I was either going to say after this movie or including this movie. Every movie going up from my list, I consider a great film,
Yeah, that was the thing.
Yeah.
That was the thing for me too with when we were doing Tarantino films. I was like, 80% of this list is like 4 stars and above. Like, are great movies. And I do, even though, we have disagreed on a couple things, I'm like, these things are a couple things away from being just like masterpieces, honestly.
And I don't have a lot bad to say about True Grit. I do remember I rewatched it, so that's twice I've seen it. I saw it in the theaters. There's things to say about it. The acting is amazing. I remember for years being a little salty that little Haley Steinfeld became like a pop star because I was just like, oh my God, this kid's such an amazing actor. And she went on and did like Pitch Perfect. For all I know, she's done a ton of acting. But I was ready to see like a star come, like give us like another Elle Fanning or whatever, like somebody who grew up to do really cool stuff as an adult. But had to get that. And maybe her music's amazing too. But I think it's pretty straightforward pop music. So it's so sad that after learning that she existed in this movie, that she went on to make like teeny bopper stuff. But anyway, yeah, the acting's amazing. The remake's really cool. I guess I just haven't seen anything that they didn't do better in other movies that I haven't seen done in other Westerns. That at the end of the day, there's nothing, there's no genius in this film. And I think maybe everything above this on my list, I think there's some genius in.
Yeah.
This is just really good execution.
Now, this True Grit remake is a little bit grittier than the original remake. They changed some things, or they went back to the original source material, the book.
So it's also a little bit truer.
Yeah, it's a little bit truer, a little bit grittier. But Haley Steinfeld's character actually loses her arm in this.
Yeah.
And that didn't happen in the other one.
Yeah,
right. So
I'm sure that like Cogburn died in the other one, maybe. I think that might be a difference. Like it's a little happier ending.
Yeah, a little bit. And I'm trying to think. I think there was a movie just called Rooster Cogburn.
Yes.
With John Wayne.
That exists. Yeah.
I've not seen it. I'm not the biggest John Wayne guy.
No.
It's okay. But you're right when you were talking about like Steinfeld, her interactions with Jeff Bridges' character, they really make the movie. That's what the movie is. Everything else is just like good.
Yeah.
It's a solid movie.
Yeah,
Matt Damon's fine. Josh Brolin's fine. They film, I'm pretty sure this is a Roger Deakins film too. It's filmed beautifully. Cinematography is great for that Old West thing. And I think it's a really good movie. But
I agree. I have no insult by putting it so low. At some point when you're sitting, you're looking at two things together in a tier list and you say, well, is this better than that? And you start, finagling with it that way. It just had to be, how much enthusiasm do I have for it? How much enthusiasm if I was talking to somebody else about this movie and explaining it to them, how much enthusiasm would I have to tell them to go watch it and what's so cool about it? And I think everything above this, I would I would put a little higher. I think my next pick is going to be one of my big surprises, maybe.
Just doing this for
totally.
So
but
yeah, what's your?
I do love that. I didn't expect until No Country that Coen Brothers would have their like dark, saturated phase, and I love every second of it. And it's smart too. I heard somebody say that after Lady Killers and Intolerable Cruelty or whatever, they went into No Country for Old Men doing something very different because probably their tank was a little dry on the run of hits between Fargo, Lebowski, Oh Brother. For being that kind of filmmaker, but so then what do we do? So they went into No Country pretty locked in, saying like, we really got to knock this one out of the park, or we're gonna, three flops in a row is gonna hurt. We're not gonna have the reputation we have now. So then once that was a big hit, they followed it up with some easier things. I mean, you have like Burn After Reading in there, which is a writer's block movie kind of thing. But yeah, then you're gonna get the next hits being True Grit and Inside Llewyn Davis, which are people seem to like our dark era. Let's keep going with that stuff.
And the thing about their dark era and everything is there is that little like they still somehow manage to add some comic stuff to it. Very funny, not laugh out loud or anything. Very smart. Like, God, their writing is just incredible.
They do nothing more masterful than mixing comedy and fear and evil and violence and horror. Like they do that throughout so many of their movies. All their funny ones are filled with horrible things and horrible people and random violence or about those things, or actually funny movies about those things, or are movies where horrible things happen and it's just about like seeing the light, the silver lining on the other side of the mountain kind of stuff. So True Grit has tons of funny moments. The medicine man that just kind of shows up, stuff like that is just they're so good at surprising you with things. I was watching a short clip where somebody was talking about Burn After Reading, how silly it is in the moment of intense violence when Brad Pitt gets shot. You don't feel scared, but they put the camera inside that closet when George Clooney's around. You don't see, and it's kind of silly and funny, and you think they're gonna like fall all over each other when he opens it, and he sees they let you see the empty gun holster, but they don't let you see it at the beginning, so you're scared the whole time. They let you see it at the last second, and then Brad Pitt turns and goes, oh, no, and then he opens the door, and then the violence comes. So you have just as much time as Brad Pitt's character has to realize that this scene's not silly, that someone's going to get shot in the face. And the way that they know how to pace those things, to bring the comedy out of nowhere, to bring the incredible violence or fear or seriousness out of nowhere, is really a hallmark of their craft. They're so good at it.
Yeah, I think when I'm talking about Burn After Reading, I wonder if you don't have Brett, and I'm not trying to pump him up so much. He doesn't need it by any means, but I'm wondering without Brad Pitt in that role, and he's only in the movie for about 20 minutes tops is probably. I'm just wondering if this movie doesn't fall a little bit flatter.
He's great. Whenever I brought that movie up to maybe not huge movie fans or not huge Coen Brothers fans, that's who they always bring up is how much they love Brad Pitt, and everybody loves to see Brad Pitt acting a little gay and doing some silly dancing, not taking himself so serious. I think Frances McDormand, I think John Malkovich and J.K. Simmons in that movie are hilarious, and I could watch them all day. So yeah, it would be less good without Brad Pitt, but I think when he's not around, I'm having a great time in that movie.
Yeah, I think I was a little disappointed in George Clooney's character a little bit, just because I've seen him be so good in a Coen Brothers film with comedy, with Oh Brother. I just think that he really nails that role, and I wanted a little bit more. I love Frances McDormand. I think Frances McDormand's probably one of the best actors of all time. She's incredible. She can do goofy. She can play this character. I feel like this character and her character in Fargo are completely different people.
Yeah.
And I can't believe that the same woman plays both of them. And then even in Blood Simple, she's amazing. And one thing I never worry about that I see with other older actors, and as Frances McDormand's getting older, is that they start playing caricatures of themselves, whether it's Al Pacino, Meryl Streep, Jack Nicholson. They all play caricatures of themselves.
Or they become offer only, and then they only accept things, and then the only offers that come through are hey, this will just be you working with great people. It's a movie that's bound to win, and you'll just have to do the things you've already done before.
Yeah.
And that might help, because instead of it being a negative that people would point out, I would never point it out in this situation, but being married to the director, who knows how good you are and values you, but also is making creative different decisions with different characters constantly, that you have the opportunity to play a lot of different things rather than having to fight studios and casting directors who are, we're scared they're just going to think of you from Fargo and they're not going to accept you in this role. So having a director who already has faith in your range and talent can help you get some of those roles. And then once she has that, oeuvre of all those movies, then you get three billboards and stuff like that offered to you.
Yeah, she's incredible, and it goes to show you why people want to be in Coen Brothers films. It seems like as the Coen Brothers make their films, they keep gathering more and more people to enter their troupe of characters. So I'll be really eager to see what they put out next now that they've got Denzel in their wheelhouse, Brendan Gleeson, all these other guys that they've kind of acquired over the years, even George Clooney.
Some more Matt Damon now that he's been in a couple of their projects, right?
That's right. So what's your number? I believe we're on 12.
Yeah, maybe a surprise to a lot of people. This is where I put Raising Arizona.
That is a surprise. That is a big surprise to me. That is usually one of a lot of film nerds, a lot of film Twitter love Raising Arizona. It's oftentimes in the top 5, if not 1, 2, 3. I've seen it on number 1 on several people's lists. So
yep, I agree. I don't know. I don't dislike it. I just would rewatch any movie above this more. Maybe I've seen it too much. It's very, very funny. It's very, very good. I think that it might be more shallow, and that's okay. I think that the absurdity surrounding the situation of wanting a baby and not being able to have one, the sweet ending where they have to give the baby back is probably the deepest it gets, and that's really, really good. But the rest of it is just a delightful kind of romp, and it was incredibly good for its time, right? I mean, it was nobody had really seen. I mean, this comes right after Blood Simple, right?
This is what is it? 3 years? 3 years after. It comes out in 1987.
So before Miller's Crossing and Barton Fink.
Mm-hmm.
This is their second release, and Blood Simple is not a full theater release. So yeah, it's crazy out of the gate. It's crazy good. I don't know. I guess this is just a personal decision where, again, with enthusiasm, I'll go along with any conversation that wants to talk about how great Raising Arizona is. I won't feel it in my gut anymore. Maybe I've seen it too much. Rewatching it, very funny jokes that I've forgotten about. A lot of great characters. Nicolas Cage, one of Nicolas Cage's best movies. John Goodman's amazing. Holly Hunter, oh my God, she's so good.
And I think the guy that also plays opposite of John Goodman, I think all of the leads in this movie are amazing.
The other couple, the frenemy couple, is amazing.
Yeah, I also think this almost plays as it's not the same movie, but the vibe of it gives me Pee-wee's Big Adventure at times.
Oh, totally. Yeah, that makes me like it a little more. I think that I keep looking back at it through the lens of Lebowski and Fargo, and it looks worse by comparison. I mean, it is worse by comparison, but that's not fair to it. Again, this is their first official studio release. I think I think Blood Simple is much smaller of a film project.
And this one feels more straight up comedy than some of the other stuff that we get. If you were to compare this to a Fargo is half comedy, half it's truly a dramedy or a thriller or whatever.
Yeah.
This one feels straight comedy, which we get again with Hudsucker, which I feel is another big swing and big comedy for them.
Yeah, I agree. I guess looking backward through the other movies, I love their thematic things and their takes on nihilism and life and culture. And it's establishing here, but it's not prevalent here. So that makes it a lesser entry for me because that becomes a thing I expect to see in Coen Brothers movies. And so when I go backwards and don't see it, then I don't I somehow don't like it as much. But we get a lot of establishing things here. We get a lot of slapstick. We get the force of unstoppable evil. That's a theme throughout Coen Brothers movies. We get that with the big scary biker bounty hunter dude. We get a little bit of evil and good people with the main characters who just want a baby, and we get a little bit of good and evil people with the people who have a lot of babies and are kind of, until the very end, are kind of assholes. They love to do that. So you see, they're definitely already coming out of the gate with a vision in mind, and it's fully formed in Raising Arizona.
And that is one thing that I really like about Coen Brothers movies. It is this balance of good and evil, and where it really is true. And it's different from Tarantino in the sense that you said it perfectly, like good people that do a little bit of bad and bad people that do a little bit of good. With Tarantino, it's just like, no, these are all bad people. That'll do funny things every once in a while, or a good thing maybe once. That's like Tarantino's theme until like the later years with.
Well, and this is the best moment to quickly like reiterate what I said in Hudsucker, which I will also again repeat is an ignorant person's mild take on philosophy, where I said that Tarantino and Coen Brothers both write films about nihilism, and I compared Tarantino to Nietzsche, who has a more brutalist survival of the fittest, it's kill or be killed kind of view of that there's nothing that matters in life. And that comes through in his movies. And then I compare the Coen Brothers a lot to Albert Camus, who had an absurdist view of nihilism, which is like if you've ever read The Stranger, it's about a person who wants to die the whole time and wishes they were dead and almost allows himself to be killed until that final moment when they say, oh, well, now that I'm here about to be killed, I guess I'd rather stay alive. Why not? Something, I might have to get that pizza again or something. And so then like you find the joy in life when it is meaningless. So you keep the silliness is just something you have to laugh at and go with. And that's what the Coen Brothers do. They have an absurdist view where horrible things happen all the time. The good guys don't always get away with stuff. Random people get killed. Bad guys get away with things sometimes. But at the end of the day, it's just a silly world, and we're all along for the ride. You got to like sing a song while you're on it, that kind of thing.
Yeah, I really enjoy Raising Arizona. I have it a lot. It is in my top 5. It's number 5 for me. So
I completely admire that. Yeah, I struggled with putting it down there, but I couldn't put it higher than anything else on the list at the moment, at least.
Again, it's one of those things where it's like these are all we're dealing with a lot of great movies.
All of these movies are now A+ movies. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that we're going to struggle when we get to the top 4 or 5. It's going to be, a bloodbath. Okay, so we're looking at number 12, which I had as Hail Caesar. We've already talked about Hail Caesar. What's your?
I had Buster Scruggs because I think Buster Scruggs is delightful, but it's and I think I'd rather rewatch it maybe because I've seen it less often. It's definitely less original and less genius than Raising Arizona, but it does so many different things in its anthology stories. I loved the brutal Jack London style of the mining story. The mining story is so good. I love those Jack London stories that are about like the brutality of trying to be a miner and fighting nature and other evil men around you. The puppet story is delightfully like with what is it? It's like a ventriloquist.
He's just a man with no arms and no legs.
Yeah, that one. Yeah,
he's an orator. Yeah,
watch it. That one has a dark gothic feel to it that I really, really loved. And then all the cowboy slinging stuff is really fun. The Looney Tunes violence is really fun. The music's really good. The throwbacks to other movies. You see the other actors a lot that have already been in there. New actors that they bring in, like when Buster Scruggs dies and he pulls out the harp just like they do in Hudsucker. Stuff like that. It's just it's a really good love letter to themselves a little bit.
Yeah, and I think that this movie got a little bit like I think the Jack London story is my favorite out of them all.
It's so good
with Tom Waits and Mr. Pocket and Finding the Gold. I love that one. Just another case of them adapting a piece of literature and making it come to life in a better way than you could have actually imagined.
Yeah.
Some of the other stories go a little bit long for me.
I think so.
Specifically the one about the Oregon Trail. It goes a little bit long for me, and I'm not as invested and I don't care as much.
I agree. I think what is it? Man, there's a Kelly Reichardt film called Meek's Crossing.
Yeah.
That Oregon Trail thing just reminded me of that movie so much and how much better that movie is than this issue.
And I really do like I do like the carriage story at the end.
Yes,
I love
the stagecoach throwback. Yeah.
Yes, and I love the like what they're saying about death in each one of these different different stories, and that's how I kept feeling about
these movies. It's a really good masterclass in something. And there's small stories of how they do things. They do a lot of cool stuff with color. I was watching something about this, so it's not an original thought of mine, but Yeah, you see a lot of, you open the movie with all of these big greens and blues with the optimism that the miner has, and then he's just down in the dirt with all these browns until he fights back and lives, and he gets to reemerge from the ground and resurrect his dreams by surviving, in this brutal climate. You see the stagecoach thing starts with all these bright saturated colors, with the optimism of travel into the New West, and as it goes on, it gets slowly darker and darker and darker, until they're begging to be led into some scary place.
And that's honestly how all the stories start. You have the bright funniness of Buster Scruggs at the very beginning of the movie, and then it goes to that the James Franco one, which is a little bit more like a little funny, not as funny, but there. And then you just slowly go down, and it's like a descent into hell almost, as that carriage is taking those people, and you feel like this is death bringing them to judgment. Like,
and that way, it's also a little bit Canterbury Tales / like a Divine Comedy of like Descent of in the Hell reminded me of that, but it's set in the Old West, like all the different stories that slowly come down. What is I'm gonna forget the Stephen Crane novel that's so good, The Ballad of Poker Flats. Anyways, it's a novella. The guy who wrote Red Badge for Courage, he wrote a book that is just like a collection of short stories that kind of exemplify all of the things in the Old West, all the different types of people and their different types of stories and struggles. Anyways.
All right, let's move on to number 11. What did you have?
The second movie I hadn't seen until this week, Inside Llewyn Davis.
Oh, this is where we have big issues.
Because you love the music so much. I know you love the music so much. And I do too. The music's great.
This is my number one movie.
That's your number one?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
This is my number one.
You know what? I watched it and I had heard this was the one. Hail Caesar, I heard wasn't good. I had heard that this was amazing, and I watched it and I was like, that's really fucking cool. I love this movie so much. Why did I rank it lower? I guess there's another surprising one I could have put at this low too. But I like it so much. I don't know. I guess I just wasn't blown away.
I get it. That's the funny thing.
The songs are very pretty. I love the story about an asshole. That you end up feeling for. Again, this is like, hey, this guy's a jerk, but then when he sings, you see all this beauty in him, and then you see everybody reject that beauty, and so that makes him an asshole. I thought the ending, like, that could be considered too cute, but it wasn't too cute for me. The ending of the cycle of being like, these kinds of people are archetypes that are stuck in this loop and will never get out of this loop. I thought that was pretty awesome. The acting was great. The music delivery was awesome. Maybe the middle sequence is a little lost in the sauce a bit. I read somewhere that they only added the cat thing because they were scared that people were going to hate that it was so plotless. But I love the cat thing. I don't know. Great film.
Anybody that hates this movie, I completely get it. And yes, I think the music and the soundtrack is beautiful. I was listening to the soundtrack earlier today. There's something about the character of Llewyn Davis. You're right. He's an asshole. I wrote that, I think this is like the perfect millennial movie. And I hate to bring up like generational things, but like, he's a cynic. He's angry. It talks about mental health. He plays that starving artist thing. Like, oh, I'm not going to take anything from anybody. And feeling like he's better than some of these things. It just feels so like millennial to me. And
that's true, because even the third act where he's like, fuck it, then fine, whatever. I can't be an asshole anymore. I'll go back. I'll go do my job or whatever. Like, the man, the system fucks him up mercilessly. Like, screws him over in some bureaucracy, and then he loses the little bit of money he has and then can't go back into regular society because the second everybody tells him, get a job or whatever, take care of yourself. Every time he does that, or that time that he finally does it and tries to be a normal working stiff, they're like, screw you. You get screwed over here too. And he's like, well, fuck it. I'll keep playing songs then. Like, yeah. So that is a very millennial take. Yeah.
Yeah. I also think this is an interesting take. We know that the Coen brothers love the Odyssey, even if they won't claim that they read it or even know what it's about. But this is another one of their Odyssey movies, except in the end, our Odysseus doesn't get his wife back or anything good to happen to him at all. He gets what's coming to him, which is nothing. Yeah. Because he doesn't take a handout from anybody. He's not a nice person. Oh man, I love this movie. It's almost like a comfort watch in the sickest way for
Yeah,
me.
no, totally. I could see it being a comfort watch. I think, the movie blew me away. It was as good as I heard, and I wasn't truly aware of what it was. I thought that it was like a biopic about a country singer, but I think it was also mixing it up with another movie that came around.
Well,
This
it is,
time.
and the thing is, this is based
Well, it's
on
based on it's based on stories, but it's not quite a biopic either. Like,
right.
it's not like Cash, but it is brutal. I do think there's a theme throughout his movies that people who find bliss are people who are content with
Mhm.
their place. And I think that if this character has a fatal flaw, it's not being an asshole. It's that he thinks he needs something or that he doesn't already have, right?
Mhm.
That he could become content with being a couch surfing bum or doing a little more work on the side and never having money the rest of his life, as long as he gets a microphone once a week or a couple times a week and singing his songs and a few people that get it. But he kind of wants something more. He thinks he deserves something more, and that's what brings the asshole out in him. Whereas Coen Brothers could easily write a story about a traveling bum with nothing but his guitar, and he's the happiest man in the world. That's a very
Mhm.
Coen Brothers thing to do.
Yeah.
So like, every Coen Brothers character, like who is miserable and an asshole, has just not found some kind of zen that they need, and they almost will never get it until they let go of the things they think they need.
Yeah,
And I think that's Llewyn Davis for sure.
and I think it's interesting too that the people that are surrounding Llewyn Davis, are we supposed to take them as better people than Llewyn? Because I don't think so. Because I feel like everybody is an asshole in this movie. Maybe
Yeah,
apart from the family that takes him in, but like Carrie Mulligan's character, like we're
yeah,
supposed to be on her side because of the abortion thing, because of her, but she's just as big an asshole as Llewyn.
yeah,
She just
totally.
has a life with Justin Timberlake. Like,
Right. But and I guess my take on it is that it's not that Carrie Mulligan's a better or worse person. It's that she's found some equilibrium.
mhm.
And if she like slept with a club owner or cheats on her man every now and then, like she's not the one out there saying,
Woe is
I
me.
deserve more. Like the world needs to give me more. She kind of knows who she is and doesn't apologize much for it. So we can judge her as worse, and maybe she is. But at the end of the day, like what we see is Llewyn Davis's misery. And how do you solve that problem of misery? Is it the next record exec who's going to be like, "You got it, kid"? Is it
Mhm.
it's him getting this big break? Is it his friend coming back to life? Is it meeting a new friend? Like, what is it? Honestly, at the end of the day, his misery lives within himself and can only be getting rid of. So the other assholes around him are a lot happier because they're not at odds with their existence as much as he is.
Yeah, I could go. I mean, I could talk about Llewyn Davis
It's
all
really
day.
cool, and it's new to me too. So I really like it a lot, and I can see myself rewatching it a decent amount, like once a year, because it is kind of a bummer. But I love a bummer movie.
Yeah.
So the cycle I'd mentioned the end being very good, but then also the final fuck you of him walking out of the club as Bob Dylan starts to play. And like, you don't stand a chance. There's a million guys like you, and guess what? Dylan's going to be the one who gets the golden ticket, not
Yeah.
you. Yeah, that's kind of awesome.
I also the final thing I'll say is like Dink, the guy that died, his partner or whatever that died,
Yeah,
that killed himself. And
his name was
looms
Dink?
out.
Like
I think
Mikey,
his
right?
name. Well, yeah, his name's Mikey. I forget what it is. Where's
Yeah.
Dink? Yeah, that's from the song or whatever.
Okay.
But he looms. He's not in the movie at all. You
Mhm.
only see him on the album, but he's in the movie the entire time. And like the whole time, it's like Llewyn fighting with himself, like, God, I wish I was him and he wasn't, and he was
Yes.
here instead of me. I wish I had killed myself, but I can't even do that now because he's already done it ahead of me. Just like all those artists out there that are doing it, the Dylans out there, they're doing do it. So
Yeah, yeah. Totally. I like what they did where they didn't over reference Mikey's death, but they
Mhm.
referenced it enough. And an average moviegoer with average expectations thinks that there is going to be there is the reveal that it was suicide,
Mhm.
but there's no reveal about how or why or what his place was in it or how he actually felt about it. And the average moviegoer would expect like some resolution, some catharsis of letting that go. But I think it's pretty smart that that's looming over there, and that at the end of the movie, what you kind of get is not some revelation about him coming to grips with his own guilt or survivor's guilt or missing his friend, that his misery is coming from within himself, and that
Mhm.
losing his friend was a bad thing that happened to his career prospects and his personal life and all of that. But at the end of the day, it's what's inside Llewyn Davis that's causing this loop of self-destruction, not some big reveal of like crying into Robin Williams' arms about his, like
Yeah.
yeah, right. And that would be a cool movie too. But I think the Coen brothers are genius in writing this like a near mythical archetype character who's constantly in a loop of like anger and frustration.
God, I love it.
You might have convinced me to bump it up a few spots. I haven't been able to talk to anybody about it. But I really liked it when I hadn't seen it till last week. Yeah.
A lot of people don't like this movie because of the plotlessness and the bummer that it truly is.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a personal favorite of mine. All right, number 10.
Blood Simple.
Blood Simple. I had Blood Simple at number 6 on my list.
Wow. I thought that
it was a first time watch for me.
Great by putting it so high, but on the rewatch, I was like, this is a better movie than I remember. I expected it to be when I'm not a young college kid who's just like, ready to, kiss ass to every cool director. I thought I would like it less than rewatch, but then I was like, man, this movie is really polished and put together and smart. I kind of remembered it as a director's clumsy indie film attempt, which is what it is, but it's not clumsy. It's fucking cool.
It was a lot better than I thought it was going to be. They did really cool things. Filming wise, they did a lot with like shadows that I really liked in this that you don't often see. You can see their like love for noir films come through in this. Yep. This kind of goes along with I'm trying to think of the ones that we already talked about. Man Who Wasn't There, obviously.
Yeah, I think Miller's Crossing. Because there's way more plot intricacies and revelations and layers of plot that I didn't remember being there, and that really impressed me as a first film.
I saw a lot of Raimi stuff in this movie too.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of like the who is it that is it's not Arlie Ermy. He just passed away. The character, the guy that's coming after the bounty hunter dude.
Oh my God! Yeah, I'm gonna blank on it.
Yeah, I'm blanking on it too.
Walsh?
What'd you say?
Is that H. Emmett Walsh?
Yes, M. Emmett Walsh.
Yeah, Emmett Walsh. That's it.
When he punches through the wall, and there you have the arm sticking out there. It felt very Sam Raimi to me.
Well, also the end of this movie is the closest they get to a horror film, and it's brilliant. Like I don't like horror, but I wish they had done more of it. I guess because her hiding in the one room and then trying to crawl out the window, and that again the force of unstoppable evil there in film 1 of him like marching down the hallway and the bullets coming through. Her shooting through the door, like that's very much a Shelley Duvall hiding just barely one step ahead of Jack Nicholson. Very like horror film vibes.
And another thing I'd say about this movie, one, this is their very first movie, so to come out of the gates with this movie, I think it's just insane. Like incredible first feature for them. One of the things that the Coens do better than anybody else are these stories of people that have plans to do things and those plans never work out. There's always something that messes up. It feels more normal in that way. It feels more grounded that there are always going to be mistakes, people making these mistakes, and it never ends up clean once in any of these movies. You don't get an Ocean's 11 ending to these movies.
Yeah, like leaving the lighter behind, stuff like that. There's always something. And it reminds me of what you said about them using the Odyssey multiple times. Again, in Llewyn Davis, the cat's name is Ulysses. They do that again. But there's also a Greek tragediness to it. Like there's always hubris. When people make a decision, they're no longer making a series of decisions. They are now locked into a fate. And like these dominoes are going to start falling. And again, this is a Coen brothers theme, like through Big Lebowski, even like silly stuff is going to happen and you don't have any control with it. You are along for the ride. Once this thing happens to you, there is a bunch of cosmic accidents that you were stuck roller coastering. And again, the best thing you can do is just ride them out the best you can and not take anything too seriously. But that is this movie too. Like one simple, again, reminds me of A Simple Plan too, because it is a simple plan that starts with, and then all of these little complications start, piling up.
And you see, I mean, watching this, it really lends towards the story of No Country for Old Men and where we're going to get to with No Country. I love that we deal with these characters that are not intelligent characters. They rarely are in a Coen brothers movie. We do have a lot of people that think they're smart, but they're actually very, very dumb. And I think the Dan Hedaya character in this movie is a very dumb character. The M. Emmett Walsh character is a very dumb character.
They don't write traditional heroes at all. No. I mean, the dude is not like, he's amazing. He's become a cultural meme for being the coolest guy ever, but he's a dumbass. Like he's not amazing. There's no moment where he gets to be a badass. He's always just being sarcastic and then barely making it out by the skin of his teeth, you know? So yeah, they write a lot of dumb characters. And this one has that too, for sure.
I love it. This was one of my favorite watches of the year. It's the first time I'd ever seen it. So I love Blood Simple, and it comes in just above Raising Arizona right now is where we've got it, below Llewyn Davis. I pulled Llewyn Davis up with my big 18 points.
Yeah, you might have very deserved, I believe.
All right, what's your number 9?
All right, this is this is my big surprise, I guess. And it's probably personal. I think it's one of the best movies they've ever made. I think it might be the most successful, well, other than No Country, the only most successful movie they've ever made. I'm just personally a little over it. It's Oh Brother, Where Art Thou?
Okay. Oh Brother, Where Art Thou? I like that.
It's an amazing movie. It's so cool. It does a lot of Coen Brothers things. I like the darker versions of their stuff, but the way they treat the Old South is pretty awesome. It's really the music obviously was a huge hit. Music in all of their movies is important, and they're so good at it. And Carter Burwell's scores are amazing, but the way T-Bone Burnett they worked with for a while for choosing pop culture songs. And then obviously Oh Brother is a very musical movie. I listened to that soundtrack over and over. I bet you did too. Lots of great memes, lots of great acting, beautiful color saturation. And then, yeah, just another, it's almost like Buster Scruggs, except that they don't, a lot of these are anthology films that aren't called anthology films because there is an episodic nature to their journey.
Oh Brother, Where Art Thou? I had it ranked one above this, so we're actually kind of right in the middle there. I love Oh Brother. Again, these are perfect movies at some point. These are A+ movies that we're talking about, so
yeah, totally.
We're not shitting on them.
And this is the movie you could ask anybody, even if they're not a movie nerd, and if you wanted to get them to be excited about a Coen Brothers movie, this is probably the one you can get anybody to be, oh yeah, I loved that.
Yeah, and I think this is the first time he works with this is definitely the first time he works with George Clooney on this. I think George Clooney knocks Everett out of the park with this one. Turturro's we haven't even talked enough about Turturro. I'm sure we will when we get to specific movies, but Turturro is amazing. Tim Blake Nelson is incredible in this movie. The music is incredible. The saturation of the entire film is beautiful looking. Again,
we haven't brought this up yet. They shoot landscapes all the time. When people think about their movies as close-up silly things or violence in hotel rooms, and yet they do landscapes constantly, and they do them so beautifully. Like, and they talk over them. And they, I think Fargo, Oh Brother, and No Country both start with 2 minutes of full landscape shots.
Yeah, Buster Scruggs does it too. In especially, I think of that middle story with Tom Waits. Yeah, so beautiful. The way they shoot those.
They really like to put their all of their movies have all their great movies have really specific settings, and they make the settings characters, and they put their characters in their settings. They use a lot of wide shots and medium shots, so that even when a character is talking, you're seeing a lot of where they are. And yeah, they do a great job with, I mean, filming the Old South from Hollywood's a pretty hard thing to do well. And the way that they cartoonified it, acknowledged its horribleness, but really focused on the goofy Looney Tunes, like silliness, but sweetness of the Old South, like is pretty great in this movie.
And I loved like the little things that they put into their movies, whether it's obviously taking the Odyssey and taking the characters and putting them in the Old South and cramming it in the Old South, but also recognizing the times, like when the TVA is starting to dam up the lakes and make the lakes and everything, and that's a part of the story, and the KKK, and even like cartoonifying the KKK in a way that doesn't glorify them in any means, but makes fun of them at the same time. It's wonderful stuff that they do there. The selling your soul to the devil with Tommy, it's so good. This is one of the better depictions of the Old South, I think, that I've seen.
Totally. And then I go again with the KKK stuff, and then I guess a bit with the cop who is the unstoppable evil here, and then maybe even Holly Hunter's like trying to like socially climb. The worst thing you can do in the Coen Brothers universe, the only way that you can end up a bad guy or truly bad guy is to take yourself too seriously and not be true to yourself. Like if you're caring too much, like you know, that's a mortal sin, and we will make fun of you for it. You're just a silly person in a cosmic accident kind of thing. And even though George Clooney takes himself very seriously, he gets called out all the time for being wrong. He's like, well, that's just some other thing, you know. And he doesn't care. He doesn't care. He doesn't get his pride hurt. He doesn't need to be right. He's just dancing through life, you know.
And apart from The Big Lebowski, I think this is probably the most quotable movie of the Coen brothers.
I thought you was a toad.
I thought, yeah, baptism. You two dumber than a bag of hammers. Like him always worrying about his hair. I just think this movie
bona fide.
You was hit by a train.
Yeah. the crooked politician who I thought would be based on Huey Long, that's based on somebody else. I love him. The little politics B plot I think is pretty great.
I just think, I think this is just a fun movie. Probably their the funnest movie that they have.
Yeah, totally.
Their collection,
and it's wonderful. I think because of its popular success, I am personally a little over it more than I am others.
Yeah,
I've seen it with my parents 5 times, much less on my own. So, but it's the only Coen Brothers movie I think my parents could like.
Yes,
maybe Raising Arizona, maybe, but they wouldn't like Hudsucker. It'd be too weird for them.
Mm-hmm.
I think Raising Arizona they could like, but this is probably the only movie Coen Brothers movie parents can love.
Except for True Grit. You get the right boomer parents in there. They love True Grit.
You know what? I saw that in the theaters with my parents. And my mom was like, yeah, it's pretty good. That little girl was so impressive. My dad was like, yeah, I like it. The old one's better, though.
Yeah, that's exactly. My dad would totally be like, yeah, John Wayne's better Rooster Cogburn than.
Yeah,
I watched so much of the original growing up. My uncle loves True Grit. That's one of his favorite movies of all time. That and A Christmas Story. Those are his top 2. So,
yeah.
All right. What's your number 8?
So we've talked about it a bunch already. I don't have to say much more about it. As much as Oh Brother maybe is a little low for my personal being over it, Burn After Reading is where I'm putting this. And that's my personal love of, I can go back to that every 18 months and I'll just have a great time. It's so fast. It's so funny. There's so many different things going on. And again, as much as it's not one of their serious movies, it is the movie. It is about, you know, you're stuck in that circumstance of events. You'd be a fool to think you have control over anything.
And you raised a good point. I know we've talked about Burn After Reading. I've already kind of put it in its place here. But one of the things that I really enjoy about this movie and a couple other Coen Brothers movies is the tightness of those movies. Yeah. They are all scripted so tightly. They are an hour and a half, maybe a little bit more. Obviously, they do go up a little bit on some of the, but this is a tight 96 minutes.
Yeah,
and they don't leave.
They're rarely bloated, which is why I was surprised, as much as I love Inside Llewyn Davis, that I enjoyed the whole middle thing when he's on tour in Chicago and John Goodman's being an asshole or whatever. That part felt a little extraneous, you know, so like it was still good. I liked watching it. But there are a few movies where they do that, but most of the time they are just like everything is they're making. I think the Coen brothers make a full film out of every 5 minutes, and that's what makes a great director. They add so many little details. They keep improving and like fine tuning everything. And Burn After Reading, I think, was them being in a writer's block about No Country or something, and they took a month off and went to a cabin together, and they just knocked this script out to get away from the bleakness and the seriousness and the pressure of No Country. And then they finished No Country, and then they banged this one out as like a B-side. And I love it so much. I will say that maybe the theme, the philosophical theme of the Coen brothers is probably the last line in this movie that I love. And I won't get it perfect, but when J.K. Simmons is just like reading the reports of everything that happened, and he goes, can anybody tell me what the fuck happened here? No, sir. And he's like, all right, so we just keep going like we were, like we don't have to do anything else. And he's like, I don't think so, sir. It seems to have all wrapped up on its own. He's like, well, damn. Thanks, agent. You know, and then the zooms right back out, and that's how the movie ends. And I love it.
Yeah, that's perfect. And they end a lot of movies like that where it's just like, what are we doing here? It's a silly story. All right, what's your number 7?
Maybe a little lower for some people. This is the artsy jerk off movie that I was like that for many years, and I think on rewatch I lost a little bit of love for it, but it's still a wonderful movie. It's my number 7, but Barton Fink.
Oh, okay, Barton Fink. I had Barton Fink at number 10 on my list.
Okay,
so a little bit lower than yours.
I mean, this is the movie they won the Palme d'Or for. I love its pretensions to art. I think that it is maybe their artiest film, in the sense that the absurdity is obscuring some deeper meaning or some metaphor about life, like, you know, that kind of thing. I like those kinds of movies. They tend to be pretentious and not as good as a lot of the creators think they are. I think they nailed this one with the comedy, with the setting. It's really great. I guess I just post early 90s and going back after 20 years, I found a little less than I remembered it being there. But I love it. I love the again the class stuff, the working class guy who is you know, the kind of rude, but Barton Fink being this character who's trying to care about that person but doesn't know how to, and is clearly up his own ass for his own politics and the way he sees art. And then he's selling out while, you know, being mad about it, but then also being mad at the working class person he says he represents. I like to think, you know, I don't think the Coen brothers get that. Well, they have a lot of class stuff in their movies, but they'll never admit to it. And it's never always on point. You know, it's never that direct. But I like to think there's a lot of theories about John Goodman going crazy at the end and, you know, storming down the hallway. I like to think that that's a class thing, but that's a revolution coming for for everybody in their way. It's a breaking out of societal norms for a working class person.
Wasn't there a theory that was about like that was about Nazis and fascism, or?
It could be. I don't know. Yeah.
I've seen a couple, and that's one of the things that I wrote. I was like, you could convince me to read an essay about Barton Fink, and I'll think something completely new about it the next time.
And the way an art film does try to be like an Abex kind of art piece, you see what you see there kind of thing. Barton Fink's a great example of a movie that everybody watches and likes, but nobody's sure what they saw. And then when you start digging, you find what you want to see, and that's the kind of movie that wins the Palme d'Or.
Yeah, I love the. They do this so well in all their movies. It's the good and evil thing. It's the devil. It's the unstoppable evil that we've talked about numerous times. And I think Barton Fink is one of those times. Well, I mean, it's not the first time they've done it, but I feel like they've kind of solidified it at this point. And that's what we get with Barton Fink. And this also plays to Hollywood stuff and taking a brilliant Broadway writer and shoving him into the Hollywood system.
Oh, that reminds me. This was unrelated. I found it. I tried to collect Library of America books, and I bought a George S. Kaufman collection, not really realizing that's who Barton Fink was based off of. And so he wrote a lot of Broadway comedies, including like some like Animal Crackers by the Marx Brothers or whatever. But he was who he's based on, his appearance at least. I don't know if you'll get a good picture of it, but it came in the mail, and like that's the guy. Yeah. So I just bought this randomly because I was interested, and like a week later, rewatched Barton Fink, was reading up on it. And I was like, oh, that's the guy. I just bought the book about the guy that they based his appearance on. And he looks just like him, yeah.
I used to get Barton Fink and Eraserhead confused and never watched either of them.
I get it, just because of the hair?
Yeah, just because of the hair. I was like, I'm not watching that weird-ass movie. I've seen both of them in the last several years. Again, this was a first-time watch for me this year, and I really enjoyed it. It was surprised by it. Tortora just putting in an amazing performance as always. And John Goodman, man, I love John Goodman in this movie.
Yeah, and nobody's other than Roseanne, nobody's ever given John Goodman great material like the Coen brothers have. Yes. I think that stuff is always Coen brothers stuff.
Sometimes when I think about all these, like I think about Lebowski, and I'm sure we'll talk about it. And like his role in that movie, I'm like, why didn't he get nominated for anything?
Mm-hmm.
He deserves it. Like
I think, we'll talk about it, but I think Jeff Bridges and John Goodman's acting and their embodiment of these crazy characters is some of the best acting we've ever seen. I think it's so good. I
saw an interview with Jeff Bridges, John Goodman, and Steve Buscemi, and I think it was from this year, and they just fit so perfectly, together, and they just work off each other the whole time. And Buscemi's just sitting back there like, what are you talking about? And he's like, shit, shut the fuck up, Donnie.
That's so good.
All right. What's your number 6? I guess we're on 6.
This is maybe recency bias, but I had such a good time. I always loved this movie, but I hadn't seen it in 15 years. We talked about it earlier this year. It's The Hudsucker Proxy.
Okay. Hudsucker. I had Hudsucker quite a bit lower. I had mine at number 14.
I think that might be accurate, but I don't know. I had a great experience this early this year. So I do think it's a little higher for I don't know, recency bias, but I didn't rewatch it for this podcast, but I watched it twice when we did it earlier in the year, and there's something so charming about it. It's just kind of the sweetest Coen brothers film. It gives me a lot of hope. It's so funny. Maybe they're closest to a straight up comedy. Maybe Raising Arizona is a straight up comedy. But I mean, we can send the listeners back to that previous episode where we talked about it a ton. I think it's a deeper movie than people think, and the art direction is just gorgeous. The world inhabited is so good. The ending, I think, is like, again, the Coen brothers, like I said with Llewyn Davis, they'll sometimes not know how to end a film, and they'll do something kind of cutesy. Except when they do it, they know how to turn it into actually, like, I don't care that was like a pat ending, but time stopping and reversing, and him coming down as an angel, like that's kind of legendary in my mind.
Yeah, I think going back to that when we were talking about it, I think it was slow in the beginning, a lot slower than I remembered as a child. I also associate this one again with Sam Raimi. He was in the movie like this. Some of these early ones do have their like Raimi-esque stuff in there, like influences. Looney Tunes. It goes to show with their like love of the Marx Brothers and the Stooges and all that. That's the kind of comedy that you're getting in this. But
we're getting the first half of the 20th century versus Tarantino's like second half of the 20th century commentary. So this is very 20s. This is the urban side of Oh Brother in certain ways. But doing the Metropolis things, I do think Sam Raimi loves some skyscrapers in a lot of his early movies. So that gives it a Raimi vibe too.
And it also makes me wonder, like, again, who was pulling which Coen brother was the influence for all these things?
Yeah.
Is this the Ethan that did, Driveway Dolls, or is this the Joel that's doing Tragedy of Macbeth? And this feels more like an Ethan movie to me.
This does feel more like an Ethan movie. I think the visuals are maybe Joel, right? I think the metaphors of the skyscraper and the feeling of the world they're in, like all those visuals might feel more like Joel trying to be nostalgic and make a bigger point. It feels like almost every wide shot might be Joel and every close shot is Ethan.
That makes sense and lends itself to it, what we've already discussed. If you haven't heard us talk about this 1994 movie, go back and check. Those are in. You can watch them on YouTube, or that one might actually be on Spotify. You want to listen to it. So, all right, we're on number 5.
I don't know. Maybe in personal love, it might be number 1. A lesser known and lesser loved movie. I put A Serious Man here.
I had Serious Man at number 9 on mine. Another first time watch for me this year.
Yeah. This movie, I'll go ahead and say it. It's certainly not meant to be offensive in any way. I have a Gentiles, Hebrewophile problem where I love anything Jewish. And as a movie nerd and an old movie nerd, right, we get so many great like Neil Simon, we get Marx Brothers stuff, Woody Allen, Albert Brooks. We talked about like any of that influence is gonna really send me over the moon. And then growing up as a church kid, I don't know, I had some little insights into that stuff. And this is Coen brothers both being Jewish. This is their Jewish movie. It is about a Jewish man and a Jewish family. It is loosely a retelling of the story of Job. And the story of Job being a book of the Bible where God kind of makes a bet with Satan. It's kind of a fucked up book, but it has some of the most beautiful things in it. But he's like, look at Job. Job loves me so well. He's a really good guy of mine. Satan says, well, look, you gave him tons of like children and wives and cattle. If you took all that away, he would curse your name. And so God takes the bet and then starts punishing Job over and over and over and over again. And then people come to Job and say, why don't you curse God? Look at what he did to you. And he's like, nah, I love God. He's my boy. Plus, I got the rest of the stuff. And then towards the end, like the third or fourth person who comes and says, you should curse God, Job says, yeah, I will. God, you kind of suck, bro. And then God comes out of the clouds. He's like, I'm sorry, what did you say to me? Like literally the end of the book of Job. This is a tangent. The end of the book of Job is just God for 30 pages going like, I made the motherfucking trees. Can you make a tree? Do you know what lives underwater? Because I do. I made it. Like, don't ever talk to me like that again. And then the book ends.
One of my favorite, speaking of the book of Job, to go off on this tangent, one of my favorite things about the book of Job was written by Stephen King, in his television miniseries, The Storm of the Century. At one point, one of the characters is telling a very basic version of the story of Job, and he gets to the end, and Job says to God, I mean, I was here for you. I did everything that you wanted me to. I praised your name. What gives, man? And God says, I don't know, Job. There's just something about you that really pisses me off. I love it. It's one of my favorite things in a Stephen King thing ever. But yeah, this was the first time I watched this movie, And I felt like I was on. This is not a thriller by any means, but I was on the edge of my seat the entire time.
It's
Like,
an emotional movie, and it's a little torturous.
yes, that's exactly what it felt like. Like I was being tortured, not in a bad way, but I was like, what more? What
Close to
next?
it. It's a little unfun to watch. You start to like you see this main character and he just gets like dicked down every left and right. Bad things keep happening to him. None of them are his fault. He can't get any recourse. He can't get any respect from anybody in his life. And maybe that's why it speaks to me. Is that I think we all feel this way a lot. I feel this way a lot about the world, like a sad sack who can't get anything going, right? And so it speaks to me that way too. This has the best version of, oh my God, they say the name of the movie. And I've been saying this for years, but it's not a quote that anybody recognizes when I say it, where I start to get like worked up and I go, I try to be a serious man. Like he's ready to burst. He's like, I'm trying to be chill here. And the entire universe is testing me so hard. Like, and yeah, you just keep waiting for him to blow up. And in a typical movie, he would somehow like, fuck you. I'm going to run away with a neighbor in a Corvette and take all my money. And you people deserve each other and go off into the sunset and be happy like he deserves.
Mm-hmm.
But not in a Coen Brothers movie.
Nope.
And that inevitability of just like accepting that you're going to get fucked over is both a Coen Brothers thing and in certain cultural takes a very like American Jewish thing too.
And the ending of this is such a great Coen Brothers ending to this, with the tornado coming at his child, the phone call in the main character's office.
Another example of I don't know how to end the movie. Let's do something a little cutesy and leave it at that, and it shouldn't work. But the Coen Brothers make it work. I love
nail it. I think Michael Stolberg, the main character in this, like kills it.
Yeah,
he should have gotten recognized a lot more. I think he did in some of the lesser award shows. Didn't get it in some of the other ones, but no, he's great and a great addition. I didn't know a lot of this.
The tornado's coming. All his one moment. That's the thing, is he gets that one moment where he betrays God, curses him. And he goes, you know what? Fuck it. I'm going to cheat a little bit. I deserve to cheat a little bit. Everybody else around me is, and nobody seems to be mad at them. And then you think, yeah, good. Go for that, Job. That's your way out. And then it all comes crashing down. And now here's a tornado coming to destroy them all. Like, it doesn't get better.
I also love the little thing about the Columbia record club that keeps calling him. I love that every time he goes into the office. Sir, do you have time to talk about your Columbia Record Club membership? I just love it.
Again, this movie's very me, because I'm the kind of person who, like, my friends look at me confused because I've had a few beers and I'm screaming about how an app doesn't work. And I'm angry about it, and they're like, calm down, it's no big deal. But I'm just trying to get them to understand, no, we are all getting fucked and we should be mad about it. This isn't about an app, it's about dignity. And that's how I see that in the world. Like the Columbia Records Club, I was like, I don't care about the money, I don't care about the records. Like, it's just about, stop treating me this way. I deserve better. I'm a human being. And so you feel that like frustration throughout the whole movie. And real quick before we move on, I think that we should mention that most of their comedy, but a lot of their drama comes from repetition. They use repetition so well. It is anxiety-inducing, chat. Yeah, totally it is. It's really sad, but I love it so much.
It's so good.
You're seen by this movie. But they use repetition so well. So the shut up Donnies, the repetition of lines over and over again, it brought the room together, that kind of stuff. They're so good at that. And so this movie is all of the anxiety screws that are tightening, they're happening like in a little like symphony with each other. Like, here's the Columbia record thing, here's the cheating thing, here's the son thing, here's the neighbor thing. Like, they're kind of like
my uncle thing, Richard Kine's character. Is that his?
Yeah.
Oh my God.
And then like the real mind fuck is that there's that dream sequence.
Yes.
Where he takes charge of his life and he takes care of his brother.
That's who it is.
And he takes care of that brother, and then he like sends him away in a boat with the money, and he's like, you know what? I'll take the fall. I don't care anymore. I'm zen now. Like, you go and you live a better life in Canada, because his brother turns out to be gay and about to go to jail for that, right? And then and they're like, oh my God, he's doing it. This is the part of the movie where you want the hero to turn around and fix everything for themselves, even if they have to go out in a blaze of glory. And then the racist neighbor shoots him in the head for being Jewish. And then he wakes up and it's just a dream. So he can only even try in his dreams. He can't succeed to get anything right or to help anybody. But he can only ever be brave enough to try in his dreams.
Yeah.
Oh, I love Mysterious Man.
It is really good. Out of the new ones that I'd watched this year, I think I had Blood Simple as my, my number one over A Serious Man, but Serious Man is real close up there. Again,
Yeah.
these are just a couple things in between here.
Well, and as a detractor compared to other Coen Brothers movies, this one is not nearly as epically original and genius as everything else they've done. I mean, the stuff that they're famous for, that like won the hearts of the world around, that has way more originality and complexity and layers. Burn After Reading and The Serious Man are very favorites of mine as like B-side movies of theirs, but those are a lot more like locked into smaller stories with lesser like art decisions in them.
Do you think that this also gets us the closest to like a biopic of the Coen brothers? Like this is the closest we're gonna get to them
Yeah, they're
acknowledging.
telling us the most about themselves than they ever have. Yeah.
Yes, I think that with this movie a lot. All right, what's your number 4? We're getting into it.
Now we're here. Yeah, I got The Big Lebowski.
Okay, I had it at number 7, so really close there. So
I think that I thought going into this that like popular culture and a lot of like bros, normies do with a lot of things I love. That it had been overquoted and that it would get stale. Again, Oh Brother got a little stale for me for that reason. I thought this would be stale too. When I rewatched it, I knew every scene, I knew every line, and it was still delightful. It's such a good movie. And so even if we're sick of bros and bars being like the dude abides, I get that that's annoying, or nobody fucks with the Jesus. Those quotes are cringe. That doesn't take away from like this movie's greatness. This is the postmodern 90s masterpiece. This is a Gen X movie as much as Llewyn Davis might be a millennial one. This is like a Gen X, fuck it, I don't care. I'm just trying to walk around in my robe, bowl with my buddies, drink a White Russian. Everybody's phony. This is a zinned out Catcher in the Rye kid, right?
And another thing that they do in this movie really well are their like Busby Berkeley sequences that they add in this movie, the dream-like sequences. So freaking good. And not only that, look, we've talked about it. The rug really ties the room together. Honestly, Lebowski himself, the dude himself, is the thing that really ties everything together in this movie.
Yeah.
Whether it is Donnie and John Goodman's character, or the big Lebowski, and Bunny and the nihilists and everything, it is all Lebowski, and he brings the room together. He is the rug.
He's the man of his time, and there's always a man. I mean, like, oh, it's so good. Like, the Coen brothers are just at the peak of their powers with this movie. Like, it's taking left turns, but the left turns feel comfortable. They're chefs in a kitchen, like just knowing how flavors work together, knowing when to be more serious, knowing when to be more silly, knowing when to be slapstick and when to be kind of psychedelic or like mindfuckery. Bringing in Sam Elliott, as this kind of this strange angel telling you the story about a forgotten hero kind of thing, but the hero's an anti-hero. It's just all so good.
Can you imagine though that this is around the time that we get not only The Big Lebowski, because all these 3 movies that I'm going to talk about remind me so much of each other, and they're just done by amazing directors. Tarantino's coming out with Jackie Brown probably a year before this. This feels as very similar to Jackie Brown. Yeah, okay. And then Boogie Nights, Paul Thomas Anderson's Boogie Nights, they all kind of feel like fun and dark and silly at times. And
right.
It's just crazy that we had movies like this that came out that close together once upon a time.
That's interesting. I think we've talked before in a long ago podcast about especially the early mid-90s being a very wholesome time for movies, especially in the mainstream, like and that making it a little boring, which is why some of these independent directors are so beloved for like popping up and making a scene and shaking things up. I think the late 90s and early 2000s, and again, it seems like the most obvious thing until 9/11, like we had like a suburban malaise in the United States. And I think the quintessential movie for that was American Beauty, and how much everybody loved American Beauty because it was about
we just lost him. That's okay though, we'll get him back here in a second. His phone might have overheated. But what he's saying about American Beauty, I also was going to bring up Fight Club. Fincher at this point in 1999 is going to bring out Fight Club, and it gives us that exact same thing that he's referencing there. We'll get Ryan back here in a second. We're almost done through our list here. We've only got 3 movies left to rank, and we'll certainly get those done. What was it about? What was it about? What was what about? I'll talk to the chat here in a second. If you have any opinions about how our list is looking, or if you've got any gripes or complaints about how the list is looking, please put those in the chat. As you're seeing it in real time here, these are our rankings in real time. I think some of the stuff got pulled up a little by myself. I think Llewyn Davis got some love from myself to pull it up into the top 5, which I'm okay with. I knew it was going to be a hard fought battle for old Llewyn Davis there. What is your, if you were ranking your own Coen Brothers list, what would your number ones be? Oh, it was, yeah, Ryan did leave us on a cliffhanger, chat. We'll get him back here shortly. I hope his phone probably died, is what I'm saying. But yeah, Joseph, what's your number one Coen Brothers movie out of the ones that you've seen? What do you think is your number one? All right, here we go. Alyssa said Barton Fink's her number one, Big Lebowski's her number 2. That's a very short list, but obviously you're in good company. I mean, look at where those are ranked on our list. Definitely top 10. And number 4, it looks like Big Lebowski's going to stay for us. Blood Simple. Somebody really appreciated Blood Simple. I'm really glad that you watched Blood Simple. I love being surprised by movies, especially when we're doing the year lists that we're doing. It's always great to come across those movies. Look, we've got a serious fan back in here. Here he is.
I'm so sorry. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. You left us on a cliffhanger. Joseph got real sad.
Oh, no. Yeah, I had my computer plugged into a power bank. I guess it wasn't doing what I thought it was doing.
That's okay.
I'm on my phone now.
You were talking about American Beauty, and I was going to bring up another movie after you got done with your thought, too.
Yeah, I was talking about like Suburban Malaise, and that movie was, people praised it for how we all feel stuck in like a nothing world that's corporate, but we all have everything we need, kind of. And then I think like that, yeah, then 9/11 shook that up, and we started talking, and we also started talking about class again and race again and gender, and like ever since then, it feels a lot more like we're living in quote unquote interesting times. But the late 90s had this feeling of like, is this what it is? We finally made it. You know, is this the end of history? And we just get McDonald's and a suburban house or whatever. And I feel like Lebowski has a little bit of that nihilism too from that era. Although it's placed 10 years earlier, but it's very 90s in the sense of I don't know. Everybody's kind of full of shit, and we're all coasting on some like capitalist dream a little bit without any mission or like deep beliefs in anything.
Well, yeah, I agree with it. And among those movies that I mentioned too, especially like a Boogie Nights. Boogie Nights takes place in the 70s at the height of porn in theaters, and you know, those stars being more like porn stars back then, or adult film stars being more like our stars of now, and them getting all their things, being, you know, living in this capitalist society, being, you know, getting all their party drugs and being glad. So I think that plays into that late 90s thing too. Another movie that I was thinking about is David Fincher's Fight Club. That really plays into what you were talking about with this late 90s generation stuff. So it's really interesting to see that we got all those great directors and great movies here putting out kind of similar movies and similar
movies about the time, in their time. The Matrix is another good one, right? As much as that ushers us into computer things, it's about like, hey, do you want to just sit around and eat steaks, or do you want a bigger truth? Like there's a bigger truth underneath like your silly little lives, you know?
Yeah, I think that's great. I'm interested to see where I honestly, this is working out a lot better than I thought it was going to work out. What's your number 3 movie?
That's where I put Miller's Crossing.
Okay, I had it at number 4. So,
all right, great.
Yeah, I think that our movie this is shaking out to be quite close to what we've got here at the top. But yeah, Miller's Crossing, I think that'll move it into the 3rd position for us. So Miller's Crossing is a movie that I've seen a couple times. I was so happy to rewatch it this year because it really does hit on every, like, I don't know, it just hit a bone for me. And I also think this is Turturro's best performance out of all of the movies. Gabriel Byrne is probably the weakest part of these movies, but he's still amazing, even losing his accent here and there with his, like, I don't know why he didn't just play it as Irish.
Yeah, I think I read that. Like, he's Irish already. It's an Irish gang. Just do that. What are you
Be
losing?
Irish. And I don't know if he didn't know that or just kept trying to do it in like a regular, American accent. But I think this movie this has the perfect balance of crime, humor, wit. The story is very clean. Again, that is a Coen Brothers MO, is to keep things very clean and precise. And it's it is one of my favorite movies of theirs.
Yeah, it deserves to be this high. I think people consistently rank it that high in their Coen Brothers thing. Now, it is not Lebowski or Fargo or anything where I think that they're doing all of their things together. But they really, this movie's so perfectly polished that it may not be for everybody with its violence and with its complex plot. But anybody who likes those things, this is the best version of those things. This is better than 99%, if not all, the noir movies they're referencing. This is their Dashiell Hammett movie. They're stealing a lot from Red Harvest. In fact, it's almost a complete rip-off of Red Harvest, which I actually read last year and is great. So it's their Yojimbo with playing two gangs against each other. Lots of fast talking and dense dialogue, which is right up my alley. I love that very much. And then, interesting vocabulary is a big Coen Brothers thing.
And they get a lot of help. It's beautifully shot. That's something that this is a Barry Sonnenfeld shot film. Barry Sonnenfeld, who we know, directing like Men in Black and Addams Family. I know I'm not Get Shorty, some of these other movies, but was mostly known before this as being a cinematographer. So giving us the When Harry Met Sally, Misery, Raising Arizona, Big.
Yep.
But Miller's is so beautiful, especially any of the times that they take him out to Miller's Crossing in the woods. And you have those landscapes, those big landscapes, the leaves falling, like, oh my God,
and there's also something about that you can't get out. There are multiple times characters are told to leave or threatening to leave or deciding to leave. Nobody gets out of this town. You're stuck in this grubby world, and you better find your way through it carefully, because the only place outside of this is a beautiful forest where you die.
Yeah, it's very much like purgatory. Like this town that they're in is very, again, heaven and hell, dealing with those dynamics. Turturro, as somebody said, talk about Turturro in this, the scene where he is taken out into the woods and begging for his life. He is amazing. It is some of the, I know it's typical to think of these loud moments, or like the big, when people yell, that's when they're doing their best acting, or when they're sobbing. But this truly is some of the best acting I've ever seen. And Turturro definitely deserves his flowers, not only for this, but when he comes back.
Yes.
And
when he's sitting in the chair, when he's cocky too. Oh my God, he gets to do both twice, right? He gets to beg for his life twice, and he gets to be a cocky winner twice. And all four of those moments are most of Turturro's role, but he just knocked, those four scenes are perfect. I love it. I love that he's not just a Weasley rat. I love that when he outsmarts the main character, and then he's knows he'll be running after him with a gun, and he hits him with a golf club and just calmly says, "Yeah, you got to try harder, buddy." And then walks out the door. See you soon. Oh, it's so great.
It's so good. I think I was smiling ear to ear when I was watching this. The second, when Leo, played by Albert Finney, who is the main, one of the main guys, in running down the street with his Tommy gun, just shooting at the cars and everything's exploding. Oh my God!
Do you know how many movie bros talk about gangster films and the best Scarface, Godfather moments? That sequence with the classical music and the choreography of them coming in and how he survives and how he grabs the gun and jumps down and just shoots. I mean, that is one of the best assassination gangster scenes of all time. Yeah. And the music too. The music's great. This is Carter Burwell at his best in this one. I think they released a soundtrack out there that was just side A was Miller's Crossing, and side B was Fargo. And it was just the soundtrack, and it was a good seller.
No, they work with who they work with because it just works perfectly. Sadly, they lost Barry Sonnenfeld starting to direct his own, but then they pick up Roger Deakins, I mean, he's
beautiful.
And I think now they've recently picked up I can't think of the guy's name, but another just amazing cinematographer that they're working with. And the Carter Burwell, if it's not Carter Burwell, it's T-Bone Burnett. So you're getting And
Or
sometimes
both of them. I
those,
think Lebowski
yeah,
had Burwell doing the score and Burnett doing the music choices,
yeah.
and yeah. No, I don't know. I feel like there's more to say, but I guess we described what Miller's Crossing is. It's not necessarily the most original thing in the world. It's just a perfect version of that thing,
Yes.
and it makes it infinitely rewatchable. Oh, do you know the actor's name who plays the other mob boss? Because he's amazing.
Is it John,
There's some. What's his name?
John Polito? The guy kind of has a gruff voice.
Don't give me the hi hat. The hi hat guy. Yeah. Oh, it's so good when he slaps his son. That's the funniest thing I've ever seen in a film.
John Polito, another guy that has been consistently in Coen Brothers movies for years.
He's so good.
Yeah, so good. All right, so we're getting down to it. The final two. What's your number two?
My number two Coen Brothers movie of all time is No Country for Old Men.
That was my number three. So I think it's gonna stay where we're at right now.
It could have been number one. I just think that the obvious number one leftover is just quintessential Coen Brothers, where No Country is a second phase of their filmmaking career. So that's why I did it that way. But No Country for Old Men is one of the best movies, arguably the best movie of the 2000s. It has so much to say. It speaks to a deep bleakness within our 21st century souls of missing old times, but also knowing that they weren't any safer back then. Kind of growing up after that suburban malaise and realizing that we're all kind of stuck in a big pile of shit together, and we don't have answers for why people are the way they are or why bad things happen. We've evolved so much in technology and in intelligence and in health and in community, but we still don't have these big religious existential questions answered about, that Tommy Lee's asking us the whole time, throughout this movie.
Yeah, and again, it plays with those themes of the devil and God and the mortals that are in between. Because I do think that obviously the devil is, the unstoppable evil is Anton Sugar, and then there's Tommy Lee Jones's character, who might be seen as the most godlike person in there, and then everybody else is just at play in between, and it's just a fight between getting to those two. How they do it, I think that. Some of the people I think Josh Brolin. This is Josh Brolin at his very best.
Yeah,
I love his character. I think Kelly MacDonald.
Oh my God,
Kelly MacDonald. Rewatch. Yeah, Kelly MacDonald might have been. Her and Tommy Lee Jones are my favorite parts of this entire movie. I
love Kelly MacDonald in this movie. We did. I'll mention it one more time, not for any real reason. Margaret Qualley doing her Texas accent in Drive Away Dolls versus. Irish Kelly MacDonald doing her Texan accent. Oh my God, her accent's so good in this movie.
Oh my God, and that last scene that she has with Javier Bardem, where he does this whole call it thing, and she refuses to play his game, and it just irritates Sugar so much. Oh my gosh.
Well, and the movie's just kind of about death is coming for you. How do you meet it? Or are you confused? Do you run like hell? Do you fight back? Do you just accept it, don't cry, but then refuse to play games? That kind of thing. It's not that you can get away from it. You can't get away from him. But when it comes, who are you going to be? How are you going to feel about dying? How do you feel about living and what you were doing when you died? That kind of thing. And that's Tommy Lee going, oh my God, I can be a cop. I can do a lot of good. I can have a good life, but there's just stuff that's out of my control. And that's bigger than me, and there's two monologues. His opening monologue about arresting some kid who said, since I was young, I knew I was going to kill somebody. If you let me out, I'll do it again. He just goes, I don't know what to think about that. He's just confused. And that's us. We're a civilized society, right? We're living in a society that we feel comfort in these rules. And then he's being able to witness that these things are mere, these are shrouds we put over us, protections, little talismans that we use to feel safe. But beyond those talismans, there's a reality that could happen to us at any time. Like Anton Sugar could be your day to toss the coin,
And I think, just going back to Anton Sugar, I just listened to a podcast that was who are the most prolific characters in movies over the last 30, 40 years. I was listening to a podcast about about Silence of the Lambs, and they were talking about Anthony Hopkins, Hannibal Lecter, and Anton Sugar got brought up as one of the most I mean, you think of a movie, like you think of somebody over the last, 10, 15 years, he's the guy. And the way that Javier Bardem plays him, it's good writing, it's good acting, um,
It's a vision. I mean, there's a vision to this, and it's a left. And again, if we want to go back to some Tarantino comparison, I love Tarantino to death. But yeah, sorry. My computer turned back on, and I heard my own voice coming from a different speaker.
It's okay.
Yeah. The Tarantino's never made a left turn in his filmmaking. I don't think, right? I mean, is there? I mean, no. I mean, it's always a Tarantino film. And so, but the Coen brothers here have shifted to a completely different tone. Not a talky movie, not a comic movie, a quiet movie, a deep movie, a scary movie. They've dabbled in all those things within their one film before, but they've never made anything like this. And they came out having like kind of crushed the 90s, coming into the 2000s saying like, look, we're going to do something completely different and we're still going to be like the best in the game.
Yeah. And this movie just has its perfect moments in it, and you can probably list off all the scenes because they're, very big moments of it. But like Anton Sugar with the gas station attendant guy, one of the most perfect scenes, I think, in a movie of all time. I particularly like we were talking about landscapes earlier and shooting landscapes when Llewellyn gets to the trucks, he gets to that whole truck situation out there, and then like he's coming back to it, and then you see the one truck in the distance, and then all of a sudden you see another truck in the distance. I just love the way that is all shot in the shadows and the darkness and the desert. It's
in the quiet,
the
wide shots. And that's what really brings you in. I had a conversation with a mutual friend of ours, James, and we were talking about some show, and it was like, now that we've been inundated with violence so much, you need violence to mean something, and the best way to make it mean something is to like shoot it wide, and just let a person see it, not with flashiness and cinematics, but with the brutal reality of what it is. So like the gun to the head of the guy on the side of the road, it's just there, you just see it. And then the tension of the crime is not from fast-paced music and like, camera pans and swerves trying to give you, it's just watching how quiet and alone he is in the desert, hearing a car door slam from hundreds of feet away, only seeing the silhouettes of what happened. Doing it that way brings you way more. By keeping it wide, it brings you way closer into the isolation and the reality of this movie, rather than like you're not in movie land crime,
And we're talking about the wide shots, but I love the on top of that, especially in this movie, the close-ups that we get of specific things, whether it is the vent that Llewellyn's putting the briefcase in, or focus on the doorknob as Anton Sugar's coming up to and walking in the room, and all of a sudden you see it pop through, using his little whatever tool he has to kill people with, the air gun. Like those focuses on those like inanimate things, not even special things, but are special in this movie, develops that tension, and we're not even seeing anything violent or anything. But I agree with you on the wide shot. Like, yeah, this movie.
No, you just made me think of two things that we haven't mentioned yet. I think the overall thing they could say is that the Coen brothers make a movie out of every detail in their movies, and that's what makes them so good. Is that they don't say this is a movie about plot, character, and music. They say everything in the movie is the movie. So two things they do is they play with spatial awareness, which I love. I love, like in war movies, I love knowing where the battle lines are. I love knowing, like, having an idea of the terrain and what it looks like, not just a bunch of smoke and gunfire, right? Like, like you see the map of the hotel rooms, you don't know what he's doing. They're also able to tell a story with just visuals as you watch all of their play, not knowing what they're doing, but watch their plans come around. So the vents and the doorknobs become characters. They take time to establish those things that become important later on. And then also sound design. They have great sound design as well as music. I saw this on YouTube earlier, but a lot of examples of how the cock of a gun's really loud, or the squeak of a chair means something. And then, Anton's little device that starts beeping around, like, follows your tension level, and you just see it from that perspective. And so now they're telling a story with just beeps, not with dialogue. It's so good. And it's so opposite of what they've done their last three big hits, Oh Brother, Fargo, and Lebowski, where there's a lot of talking,
You'll appreciate that last comment in the
Yeah.
chat. Like Abed's
It's a movie within a movie within a movie within a movie. I call it Abed.
No, I think that you can't say any. This is a perfect movie.
Yeah.
Five just can't go any better than this movie.
There's one that's better.
There is one that's better, and it is one that only because I gave Llewyn Davis my number one spot, but Fargo is my number two and would be your number one.
Fargo is my number one. Again, No Country could have been, but I think nothing. I think No Country for Old Men, as perfect as it is, could be made by a lot of directors. A lot of directors would like the source material and could make a similar movie out of that story with similar themes and do just maybe, if not as well, can do a very good job. I think only the Coen brothers can make Fargo. And I think Fargo is their flag in the ground. This is who we are. This is what our cinematic voice is. This is what we're good at. And everything that we talked about in all these other movies is included in this. Even the bleakness of No Country for Old Men, the crime gone wrong, the unstoppable evil, all the comedy stuff, the slapstick stuff, the landscapes. Another movie, No Country and Fargo, both start with 2 minutes of voiceover and only shots of the landscape that you're going to be living in for the next couple hours. Fargo is a perfect film, and it's the one that like gave us the Coen brothers in a big way.
Yes, this is the one that kind of put. I mean, obviously they were put on the map with their earlier films, but this is the one that they got recognized a lot for. And I can't even remember what ends up winning the Best Picture Oscar for '96. But why this doesn't win is beyond me. They give him the adapted or the screenplay Oscar, and Frances McDormand wins. But yeah, I would be curious to know what beat this out in '96. I think it was The English Patient. Thinking of
I don't need to be mean to that movie. I like it well enough, but
yeah,
I mean,
but
it's not a legend. Fargo's a legend,
and Fargo does it, and I compliment this so much. They do it in an hour and a half.
Yes,
they do everything in such a clean, precise. The script is perfect in the way that it is done, and everything is tied up nicely, neatly in a bow. And I love that final scene that we get with Frances McDormand's character. And going back home and being with her husband and just still not understanding. Like I think
well, it's like the Tommy Lee quote I just said.
Yeah.
He's like, no. And then when she's driving him back too, she says that. She's like, you did all of that. You just did all of that for some money. You know, money's not everything. Like the way she's so innocent, but also so wise. But she is the Tommy Lee character who's like looking at all of this and throughout the movie having complete composure and confidence in themselves, like Tommy Lee does. Surviving at the end, getting the job done, and then going, now what was all that about? And again, back to Burn After Reading, like trying to figure out after the fact what all of this silliness and this nonsense and this violence we're all stuck in. What's it really all about? How do you understand it? But then she's one of their perfect Zen characters. She's deserved and earned a faithful, loving partner and the respect of her community and everything. And she just lays her head back down in the absurd world that they live in and just learns to enjoy what she has and not think too much about it all. Yeah. It's great. It's a thesis statement. Yeah.
It is unique, though, that our top two movies are this one, are like one that is put against a snow-covered country, and then the other one is against the desert of Texas, West Texas, and
it's a complicated, convoluted crime story that people, once Josh Brolin makes a decision to go, then he's just kind of trapped into that world now. The series of the Plinko balls that are going to drop that he dropped, like he can pretend he's in control, but something's going to happen. And then once the William H. Macy makes her choices. They're out of his control, and absurdity, the absurd universe is going to take over, and there's no, you're stuck there. It's just how you meet these challenges now.
And again, nobody does side characters better than the Coen brothers too. With the two crooks, like Steve Buscemi's character in this is incredible. All of the other side characters that we get, whether it is William H. Macy's father-in-law, or her husband, Frances McDormand's husband's amazing in this. It just feels real. It feels lived in, and it feels like this is the kind of story that could happen in our small town USA, wherever that is.
Well, oh my God. And then like the smallest thing, but you just said that this could happen, but the postmodern movie lover, cinema fan genius who starts his movie lying to the audience by saying, this is a true story that happened in Brainerd or whatever, and it didn't. It's not a true story.
No.
The TV show does that these are true stories, and they're not true stories, not at all. But they don't care. It's movies. Every story is a true story in the film, that kind of bullshit. Or, we don't care if we're lying to you about it. Isn't there something true about this story? Doesn't it feel true?
And the perfect balance of humor, violence in this movie. It is everything that we love about the Coen brothers and who they are. Like when you think of a Coen brothers movie, it should be Fargo. That should be the first one that we think of.
Yeah.
Those things. So.
And if like Lebowski or Oh Brother, and maybe even somebody our age might be a little over talking about it or praising it or rewatching it, that's understandable. But I think objectively, Fargo has to be in the top 3 Coen Brothers films because it is the most Coen Brothers film ever made.
Yeah, absolutely. Anything else you want to say about Fargo other than it's perfect? I feel like we talked about it the least, and it's the number 1 movie on our list.
Well, everything I keep thinking of is what we've talked about in other movies. The way that they make movies feel different but do the same things over and over again is fascinating. I was thinking earlier when we were talking about Llewyn Davis and the car trip and how that feels it had to be purposeful, reminiscent of Buscemi and the other guy in the car, and one being talkative, one being quiet, like how all these hardened criminals have to go on a road trip together, or these shitty people have to be in a road trip together, and that looks like any other road trip, and there's how to deal with that. But all of these things keep getting referenced back and forth that they're kind of laying Easter eggs to their former films or future films all together. Their movies are so comparable and so different. It shows that they not only have a singular vision, but they keep doing variations on a theme while keeping it fresh.
Yeah. Chad asks, is Frances best in Fargo?
No,
as in like, is that her best role that she's ever been in? I think that she just has more to. I think she's pretty 2-dimensional. She's a great character, and she's not 1-dimensional, but her acting has to be, her dialogue and script has to be. So she's amazing. But I mean, you can't like take 3 Billboards out of that, where she has more emotional depth than she's ever allowed to have in the kind of flat world of the Coen brothers. She's kind of the anti of her character in 3 Billboards. It's complete opposites there. I'm trying to think of anything else. Yeah, Burn After Reading she's very good and comical in that role. I'm trying to think of anything Coen brothers related.
What else is she in? I mean, Blood Simple. She just gets to be kind of the girlfriend, right? So she doesn't. She's actually really good. I was surprised at how good she is, but she doesn't get a ton to do as an actor.
Yeah. I'm trying to think, Man Who Wasn't There. She's okay, and I think that's just bogged down by a not as good movie. But I would say I think Frances. That's probably been Frances's. I
haven't kept up with her either. She's had some later things that I haven't. Especially post 3 Billboards, she's been given some more dramatic role opportunities, and they might be. I'm sure they're amazing, but I haven't seen them.
She's great as Lady Macbeth. And she's played that role on stage before several times. So she kind of
that's awesome.
She kind of owns Lady Macbeth. She's a great Lady Macbeth.
But Frances is amazing in Fargo. I'm not sure anybody else could do it better. I think I like to always play the game of like switching Holly Hunter roles with McDormand roles, but I think Frances McDormand's better than Holly Hunter would be in Fargo. There's something a little too Mickey Mouse about Holly Hunter that wouldn't work as Margie.
Yeah, she seems a little bit too silly, too comedic to be in that role. Where I think that Frances can really balance that. She does that really well in Almost Famous too. One of my favorite movies as the mom. Like I think she handles the comedy really, really well and puts it into a real world situation where she's not a caricature character.
Yes, because Margie, you love Margie and she seems a little silly, but you always respect her and you respect her a lot in the movie. So her accent, the Yooper kind of accent, and the flat way she talks about horrible things is funny at the beginning, but you don't ever see her. Holly Hunter would have a hard time not making that a comedic character. Frances McDormand's fun and funny to watch, but she's a real person that you connect with in Fargo. Yes. So it is a cheesy performance.
It also leads to her, I don't want to harp on her looks. I think that Frances McDormand is very, very pretty, but she is also she looks like Margie. I don't know how to explain that. And that's one of the things about the way
they dress her too. She wears real police clothing. Of course, she has like a big jacket on. She's nobody, and I love that nobody. I don't know. I'd have to think before making the statement overall. Certainly, I'm sure it happens in Coen Brothers movies, but Coen Brothers movies are not known for like women being there just to be sexy, or like the most it could be is like Bunny, but Bunny ends up being this character that has like while being off screen most of it, like has a whole like thing, and she's in charge of her situation a lot more than a lot of women get in movies. So there's not a lot of main character women, unless it's Frances McDormand, like in Coen Brothers movies. But when they're there, they're highly respected by the film. In Burn After Reading, like there's a silly thing where it's not silly, but like it's kind of sweet where she's kind of obsessed with getting a breast, enhancement, right? But she's like very grounded about it. She gives like all the good reasons, like a responsible person who just wants that. It's like, yeah, I just want to do it, and it'll just make me feel good, and I don't care. It's not for anybody else; it's for me. And she's kind of a silly character there, but you kind of respect and root for her in that, just like you do in Fargo.
Yeah, I agree.
But I think Frances McDormand as a person, everything I know about her is a pretty formidable person herself. So if her director husband tried to tell her to do anything or dress a certain way or deliver a line a certain way and she didn't like it, I'm sure she'd be like, "Nah, I'm not doing that. This is what we're doing."
I'm not doing that at all. That's pretty true. And the Coens never claimed to like know how to write women, but they do a very good job, I think. Even with characters like we go back to No Country and Kelly MacDonald, like they give her a lot more to do than just be that wife character that's just like waiting on Llewellyn hand and foot. Like she kind of appears that way in the beginning, but then she gets fully fleshed out over that movie through her concern and then through her ultimate fate that she meets with Anton Sugar. So I don't know. I commend them for that. The worst they do it is in Intolerable Cruelty, and that's not even their movie.
Yeah.
So, well, I think we did it. I think we
really did it.
We really did it. It took us 2 hours to get there, a little over 2 hours to get there, but we did it, and I'm really happy that we did do it. I hope everybody's in a great. I'm looking at the list that I can see on the screen here, and I'm not mad about it at all.
I think it's pretty good. I think we should throw it in Discord too. If anybody watching wants to find it, they should find your Discord. And anybody who wants to, offer their own list or opinions, I think that'd be cool.
Yeah, I think so too. If you want to rank the 18 movies that we have listed here, we'll throw that over in Discord, and maybe it'll affect the rankings. But as we have it right now, we've got Fargo number 1, No Country number 2, Miller's Crossing 3, Big Lebowski number 4, Inside Llewyn Davis being brought up by my high score at number 5, Serious Man number 6, Blood Simple 7, Barton Fink 8, Oh Brother Where Art Thou 9, Raising Arizona 10, Hudsucker at 11, True Grit 12, Burn After Reading 13, Hail Caesar 14, Ballad of Buster Scruggs 15, Lady Killer 16, Man Who Wasn't There 17, and finally an Intolerable Cruelty at number 18. Not a lot of misses on this list.
No, honestly, yeah. I think as much as that list is different than my personal one, if I saw it, it'd be hard to argue with much of it,
Yeah. And that's one thing I did in research. Like I was looking at other people's lists of Coen brothers. You can Google it and find rankings of them, and they're all so different.
Are they really?
Crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now you'll see like that top 5 there, or even the top 10. You'll see Raising Arizona number 1. You'll see Oh Brother Where Art Thou number 1. Like there really are a lot of opinions.
I think the Coen brothers are very good, especially like your first or second or third, or you discover a Coen brothers movies can be very personal experiences. And so people just don't talk about them being great, well-made movies or classic films or great moments of cinema. They talk about them with their own personal feelings because we have connections to these movies. And so there might be a little bit of a Rorschach test going on with Coen brothers too. The ones like my love for A Serious Man feeling very personal, right? But who you are might be reflected in which Coen brother movies you like.
And Joseph did say he's going to give his 2 cents once he watches them all. That's his goal right now. So we'll get some love.
To quote Kelly MacDonald, big talk.
Big talk. Well, thank you, Ryan, for doing this. You are a serious fan. Is there any movies that you've seen recently that aren't Coen brothers movies that you'd like to recommend?
Wow, I haven't thought about that question, and the answer is no.
That's okay.
Yeah.
That is quite all right. We'll get you back on here for a regularly scheduled program, and we'll get your recommendations then when you have a little bit more time to prepare. Just want to remind everybody, this coming Sunday is Interview with the Vampire. We'll be discussing that as part of our Creature Feature Month. I believe Tori will be joining me for that one. And our bonus episode is going to happen at the end of this month, October 30th, so a day before Halloween, so you can get all your spookies out. Well, it's titled Game Over Man, and the reason it's titled Game Over Man, we're covering 2 video game movies there, Double Dragon and Street Fighter, and we hope that you will join us. And if you follow along, or if you're in the Discord, we'll drop a link there, and you can join us and talk about those movies at that time. Ryan usually joins me for those, but we'd be more than happy to have other people come on and
Please do.
talk about stupid movies. So thank you all so much. I really appreciate you sticking around, and we'll talk to you next time on 52.